Yeah, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting as all special taxing districts. This is June 7th, 2021, 9 a.m. meeting. Board members may attend either in person or by telephone or remotely via electronic conferencing. I think every one of us is here, so we'll begin. This is the call to order. The next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Supervisor Lyons to lead us on the pledge.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, the first item in the agenda is after the Pledge of Allegiance is called to the public. Call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. We do have a sort of disclaimer, so anyone who's concerned about COVID-19 and does not want to be put into an open setting can submit an email to call to the public statement. Public comment at yumacountyaz.gov. These email forms of public comments will be accepted until 8 a.m. the morning of the meeting. All public comments will be read aloud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting that starts at 9 a.m. And I do want to make it clear that if you want to send a comment, an email, regardless of COVID or not, that you can still send it and we'll read it. It's not necessarily because you don't want to be in an open setting. You just may not be able to come in. We understand these meetings are at 9 a.m. in the morning on Monday, and it's not necessarily the most convenient time. So you can send your comments and we'll read them. Are there any comments this way? No, there are none. And we'll move on to the next item, which is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission, the Yuma County Board of Adjustments. No legal action will be taken. The first item in the agenda, there's no appointments, right? No? Okay. No. The first item in the agenda is the presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
Students at Aztec High School unveil a sculpture they've been working on. We've got an update on the Dateland home that's being rebuilt. And we'll share some tips to help you stay healthy as the desert Southwest heats up. These stories and more, this is your County Line. A new program at Aztec High School is helping students learn the trade of welding, while also creating an attraction for those visiting or traveling through Yuma. On May 26th, students at Aztec High School gathered at the Quartermaster Depot to unveil the Yuma sign they had been welding. The Y in Yuma has intentionally been left out, so the sign may look incomplete or misspelled as Yuma. The purpose of the missing letter is to give those living, visiting, or traveling through Yuma a chance to snap a picture while completing the title of our city by being the Y.
That started last fall. We had a couple kids that were involved, one in particular, and then at second semester we had a bunch more that wanted to get involved, and they developed this sculpture for the Yuma. It really did a great job of teaching them teamwork. It did a great job of kind of opening their eyes to what's out there in the world, because Shannon would talk to them about, careers in welding, things of that nature that they had no idea.
Students were prideful in creating something that would help bring visitors to Yuma and have enclosed items in the M along with a letter from the students as a time capsule to be opened in the future.
When you look at the students, look at them. I mean, I was just saying to somebody else, it's been great for them because they forgot they were students for a moment. They're laughing, they're having a good time interacting with the public. That's indispensable.
The welding program is a first for Aztec High School. it will continue to be offered going forward. Don't forget to head over to the Quartermaster Depot and take your picture with the Yuma sculpture. On a previous County Line, we brought you a story of a Dateland home that was in need of a complete makeover. Back in May, local contractors broke ground on a Dateland home that was in need of major repairs. The 1984 dilapidated single-wide mobile home qualified for the Housing Rehabilitation Program. The home had safety and accessibility issues which met program criteria. With demolition and removal of the old home from the site complete, the new home has begun to take form. Foundation has been laid and the framework has begun. Plumbing lines have been installed as well as windows.
The next step, of course, is putting in the stucco and getting all the inside of the property built, setting up all the appliances. They have to be Energy Star. So for energy efficiency, they are getting, of course, the AC unit installed, the water heater, and a new stove with microwave hood.
There's still work to be done, and we'll update you on the progress of the home soon. Next time with the home complete and the family moving in. For more information on the Housing Rehabilitation Program, visit our website, yumacountyaz.gov. It's no secret, it gets hot in Yuma in the summer, but that shouldn't hold us back from having and doing the things we love. However, there are some things we can do to make sure the sun doesn't keep us from having fun. One important thing you can do is stay hydrated. Drink water throughout the day, even if you don't feel thirsty. Try to avoid beverages that contain caffeine and alcohol. Avoid strenuous outdoor activities during extreme heat. If you must be outside, use sunscreen and wear light clothing. Take frequent breaks in cool, shaded areas.
If you're out in 110-degree weather and you're not sweating, that's a huge red flag. It means your body's not producing sweat, which helps to regulate our body temperatures, which is a big tell sign that we want to, get in some shade, get hydrated, and seek medical attention if we need to.
Although anyone at any time can suffer from heat-related illness, some people are at greater risk than others. Check regularly on infants and young children, people age 65 or older, and people who have a mental illness or who are physically ill. If you follow these simple steps, you can enjoy Yuma's summer weather without the fear of heat exhaustion or heat stroke.
I'm Elia Juarez, and this is your Library Update. Summer is right around the corner, and that means our favorite program is about to make a return. That's right, the Summer Reading Program is on its way. The Yuma County Library District Summer Reading Program is open to all ages. The program starts on May 29th and runs until July 10th. And there are 3 ways that you can participate this year. First of all, you can go to our website, follow the link to the Read Squared webpage, and sign up there. Also, you can download the Read Squared app to your Android or iPhone, or you can come in to your closest branch and we will register you for the program and give you a paper log like we've had in the past. For more information, make sure you check out yumalibrary.org for all the details and follow us on all of our social media platforms.
Before we go, did you know that the Federal Communications Commission is offering broadband discounts to those who qualify? The Emergency Broadband Benefit Program provides a discount of up to $50 per month toward broadband service for eligible households and $75 per month for qualifying households on tribal lands. The program also provides up to $100 discount toward a one-time purchase of a computer, laptop, or tablet. Additional information can be found at getemergencybroadband.org or by calling 833-511-0311. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'd like to leave you now with a message from Yuma County employee Nick Boyson, telling us why he loves working for Yuma County.
I'm Nick Boyson, facilities management. I'm a and I worked at Yuma County for 2.5 years. I love working for Yuma County because the work environment and the people that I work with and the opportunity it gives me to serve the community and longevity as far as where am I going to be in 20 years. I'll have a retirement built, I'll be, healthy and that sort of thing. Everything we do, people see, so we really got to be professional, and we're fortunate to be working here and be a part of a good thing.
All right, thank you. The next item in the agenda, it's a proclamation, and this is where we proclaim June 15th, 2021 as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Yuma County, and this will be read by Supervisor Pancras.
Good morning. Proclaiming the day of June 15th, 2021, Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Yuma County. Whereas older adults deserve to be treated with respect and dignity to enable them to serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and vital participating members of the community. And whereas 2021 marks the 15th annual Elder Abuse Awareness Day, its recognition will promote a better understanding of abuse and neglect to older adults. The Yuma County Board of Supervisors and the Western Arizona Council of Governments Area Agency on Aging recognizes the importance of taking action to raise awareness, prevent and address elder abuse, and whereas preventing abusers of older adults through maintaining and improving social supports like senior centers, home and community-based services, and transportation will allow everyone to continue to live as independently as possible and contribute to the life and vibrancy of our community. And whereas where there is justice, there can be no abuse. Therefore, the Western Arizona Council of Governments Area Agency on Aging urges all people to restore justice by honoring older adults. Join us in our engaging and empowering movement and putting an end to abuse. Now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the day of June 15th, 2021 to be Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Yuma County, and encourage all our communities to recognize and celebrate older adults and their ongoing contribution to the success and viability of our country.
Thank you.
Yes.
We do have someone here to pick it up. Carol E. Brown?
Yes.
There you are.
Can you take
Carol.
pictures? Oh,
Yeah.
she's going to talk.
Would you say a few words?
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate this.
You got to be facing this
Okay.
way so the camera can take you like
I appreciate the opportunity very much, just to remind our community, which we know has a very high density population of older adults, that elder abuse is a very hidden thing. Statistics show that 1 in perhaps 10 to 12 events are actually reported. And those are typically in the realm of financial exploitation rather than actual physical abuse or worse. So the more that we can do to share the reality of this and to make sure that everyone understands we can all play a part. We can all do something to stop elder abuse. By doing this, we do raise awareness, and we continue to fight this fight. The Area Agency on Aging is very grateful to the County Board of Supervisors for supporting us in this.
Right, well, step down.
All right.
Give you the actual proclamation, and hopefully the rest of the members will move quickly.
All right.
I'm not very picky about who needs to be here, but normally a supervisor reports it. No sad moves, huh?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you. That's always.
Disinfected here quickly.
Yeah.
All right. takes care of the proclamation, and we'll move on to an update by Buna George, Executive Director of the Greater Yuma Port Authority Activities. There will be a dreaded PowerPoint presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I always make my PowerPoints and think of you, Tony. My name is Dina George. I serve as the Executive Director to the Greater Yuma Port Authority, and I'm just here to provide you a quick update on activities. This way, perdón. So the Greater Yuma Port Authority's mission statement will develop a gateway for global trade to facilitate, promote, and support multimodal transportation and trade opportunities to enhance the economic development in the Greater Yuma area. We are made up of 4 member entities with 2 appointed members from each entity. Yuma County being, Tony Reyes, obviously Chairman, County and Supervisors, and then Susan Thorpe, County Administrator. Councilmember Matia Rosales from the City of San Luis, as well as Frank Rascon representing the private industry with Frank's Trucking. Cogopah Tribe, Gary Magrino, Business Development Director, as well as Fernando Mezquita, Tribal Planner. And Gary Knight, Council Member of City Yuma, and newly appointed Wayne Gale. Because Mr. Terry Friedland is retiring, we went ahead and alleviated him of GYPA duties, and City of Yuma appointed Wayne Gale. So these are decision makers essentially on the board. And again, created in 2001, envisioned since 1995, countywide partnership, and this year we're actually celebrating the 20-year anniversary. A few statistics as far as the first quarter of San Luis One, average pedestrian of about 155,000 a month, and that's for January, February, and March. Displayed up here is pedestrian personal vehicles as well as the passengers within the personal vehicles. The 2020 data going back for the truck crossings, we can see on the commercial port of entry, January, February, March, obviously we see an escalation because of the, the agriculture. And essentially I know, and I'll get to it in the next slide, COVID restrictions were implemented as well as the travel restrictions coming in April. So this is 2020 data for pedestrians and private vehicles. You can see on the pedestrian, it was normally averaged at about 250,000 per month, and that declined to less than 100,000 once the COVID and travel restrictions were implemented in April. I'm sorry, enforced. So the 2020.
Before you move on.
Yes, sir.
That, based upon a study of the U of A, it's the lowest numbers we've had in 40 years.
Correct.
Crossing of pedestrians and vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
We did better on the commercial, but the pedestrians and vehicle ones, it's just awful. And
Correct.
It still hasn't stopped yet.
Right, and on the commercial now, I didn't have the first quarter data available. We're seeing over 400 trucks on both northbound and southbound. So again, the 2020 data, as far as the trucks with the containers loaded, the containers empty, personal vehicles, passengers, and the pedestrians, all available online just for the research. But we can see that those numbers with the pedestrians and the numbers that we're seeing, obviously this year, are going to be significantly less. Our collaborative efforts this year so far, we've had our 2nd annual binational trade webinar with the focus on logistics. This is something that the Greater Yuma Port Authority partners with GYEDC, the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation, as well as Forefront ED and OPRO de San Luis Rio Colorado, which is the Economic Development Corporation on the San Luis Rio Colorado side. So they were all very well attended. They brought forth, the logistical measures as far as planes and trucking, because we're working on trains in order to have that perfect trifecta. And so we are working on our 3rd series that's going to focus on regional planning, hopefully by this fall. And an update on the Magrino Industrial Park. In late 2020, we had applied with the City of San Luis for a $500,000 roadway grant, what we were awarded. And so that has gone in for the industrial park, and GYEDC was amazing in assisting in the grant writing with us. So we are at full development on our Unit 4, right where you see those blue lines on the upper right-hand side. We'll be sharing success stories with Spindle Cooling and Labrie, and that's essentially where the development has started. So the successes in the Magrino Industrial Park, from Spindle Cooling, we have gone from groundbreaking to development to a ribbon cutting, and now they are a full functional facility. 50,000 square foot refrigerated and freezer space. They are on their first of 3 phases, of development within the park. Estimated 10.7 million at full development. Right now we've got 22 employees with an average of $16 an hour, and the overall positive economic impact on the county. The next success I'll share is with Labrie Properties, also with the manufacturing facility, 75,000 square feet. They did their groundbreaking and they are currently under development. And that is going to be a $4 million investment upon the project completion, 35 full-time employees, and this immediately supports a manufacturing plant in San Luis, Mexico of over 200 employees. So it's 35 employees, it's the economic development aspect. It's 35 dining tables, 35 families, 35, people that have different choices, along with what Spindle has hired on additionally here in the county. So in summary, we have opened up our dialogue with the port users, dialogue with the federal agencies, make each other's needs known and work in conjunction to find a resolution if one is needed, and that's with CBP, ADOT, as well as the port users. Some of the action items that we are currently working on is the advocacy of a full-time entomologist at San Luis 2, establishing additional overweight truck routes because we're allowed overweight permits here in the state of Arizona as opposed to California is not. Reduce overall out-of-service rates at San Luis Commercial Port, improving the wait times for the pedestrian and vehicles, extending port hours at the commercial port of entry, and ensure that Yuma County and San Luis is fully represented at any Sonora, Arizona, and U.S.-Mexico decisions. So again, back with the mission statement, developing a gateway for global trade, that was the establishment of San Luis 2. And again, we continue to facilitate, promote, support the multimodal transportation opportunities, ensuring that we have healthy arterial trade routes within the county for all the products that come through here in Yuma. So with that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, any questions that you may have?
No. Any questions from the rest of the board? Just one, and it was addressed to me by Supervisor Lyons. He is a member of the board commission for the Arizona-Mexico Commission. He may be very useful to you if you could use his contacts. So he's been appointed to replace Russ McLeod as a member of the Arizona-Mexico Commission, representing the county, but he's been active in that for years, and I think his contacts in there will be very valuable to you.
Wonderful. Yes, they will be. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Next item in the agenda is a presentation of the 2021 legislative report by Craig Sullivan, Executive Director of the County Supervisors Association of Arizona. Mr. Craig Sullivan, Executive Director of CSA. The timing's a little off, but but we didn't expect it to be that way. So it's been a weird year the past 20, and it's starting to be sort of like that 2021. But anyway, Craig, welcome. We know you come from Phoenix, and it's a tough drive in the sun, everything, the heat. So be my guest. Start.
Thank you, very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. For the record, my name is Craig Sullivan. And the drive was lovely, Mr. Chairman, because the sun was at my back. And so it was a very nice drive coming out here this morning.
You have to stick around so it's at your back on the way back.
Exactly. I think I will. And I'm very excited to be here with you all today to talk a little bit about the activities of the County Supervisors Association. First thing I want to do, though, is thank all of you for your involvement in our association and your partnership with the other 14 counties. I think your voice at the table makes for a very strong collaboration of counties in this state, and I just want to extend my appreciation to each and every one of you for your regular involvement in our conversation. And similarly, I want to thank County Administrator Thorpe for her great work with our administrators group and our managers group. The work that she does and your staff does here to feed information to us is what helps us serve you up at the state capitol. And so thank you very much, Susan. We have a very strong team across the state of counties. I do have a very dense PowerPoint, and you do have a copy of it. I won't go through everything in it, but I'm happy to stand for any questions. My primary purpose is to talk a little bit about some of our activities, both in the legislature as well as outside of the legislature, and of course field any questions or comments or any feedback that any of you may have. To begin with, though, for folks who aren't familiar with the association, the County Supervisors Association is a collaboration of all 15 counties and all the supervisors that govern those counties. We serve as a forum that's nonpartisan to come together to talk about issues that impact your constituents, county operations, county resources, and revenues. And we try to do that by building capacity across all 15 counties. And then we engage in intergovernmental activity. Why is intergovernmental activity important? Because as you know, as county leaders, counties are administrative arms of the state, and there are external authorities that impact your operations. And so the ability to engage those external authorities is very important, because when they make decisions, it rolls right down to Yuma County and the other 14 counties. Our organization is led by all 61 county supervisors, and everyone is welcome at our table, our legislative policy committee discussions, and everything that we do. I do want to extend my particular appreciation to Supervisor Pancrazzi, having been elected by her peers to serve on our executive committee, which puts her in the pipeline to be president of the association in a few years. And I know that's extra duty, but I'm grateful for all the extra time you're giving us.
We decided we're going to pull her back.
What's that?
We're going to pull her back.
Absolutely not. The whole organization will collapse. We talked a little bit about the forum that we create for counties to talk to one another. We bring in a lot of leaders to connect with you, share information, take feedback from you. But I wanted to point out in particular in the lower right that we have a very strong collaboration as well with the professional staff throughout the counties. The managers, the planners, the finance directors, the engineers. That really allows for a very robust 15-county dialogue on best practices, policy items that impact you, and it really creates a strong, strong collaboration that I'm very proud of, and I wanted to highlight that. At the foundation of what we do is research, and so we develop a lot of information, whether it's policy information or just data that is necessary to analyze policies that come down the pipe. So we have a very robust data collection effort. We do have information that's available to your professional staff. We also have a lot of information on what we call our county encyclopedia and our county revenue dashboard. But this is critical to everything we do, and it's not something that we put out there a lot. But Vanessa Fielder on our team manages this project, and it grows every year and becomes more impactful. Now, the organization has to flex to deal with issues that just come upon us, and so I want to talk about a couple of those key items. One is managing the pension system. Now, none of you made the decisions that impacted the high costs of the pension system. We've inherited it, but what we have to own is how we solve it. And so we at the association have been creating a conversation across counties to improve decision-making by the Board of the Trustees, improve decision-making by the state legislature, all of which drives a lot of these costs, and then to share best practices among counties on how to control the costs of these pension systems. And I'm aware that your county has taken great steps in that regard that will save the taxpayers significantly going forward. 7 other counties have done similarly, and that's been the product of the managerial and finance director conversation that we've been facilitating at the association. A lot more work to be done, but this is a strategic initiative that we'll continue to be engaged in. Also, none of us asked to be the public health response for a pandemic, but we all had to do it. And I want to take a moment to applaud the work that you all have done leading your county through the pandemic and the work of your professional staff. It's been a remarkable year and a half. And as we come out of it, I think it's a real testament to the great public service that all of you provide and how well things operated here in Yuma County. We are focused a lot on how to facilitate conversations with the congressional delegation as well as state legislatures on issues, and the governor's office, on issues related to the pandemic. Right now, we've all transitioned into managing the federal resources. So as you all figure out how to use the federal resources that have come down here, we are using our forum to bring managers together to talk about best practices. We're also looking at accountability requirements downstream and getting questions answered from the federal government. And so that'll be an ongoing effort throughout the course of the timetable for spending the federal resources. Now, moving on a little bit to the legislature, you all know that the legislature is still in session. So today, they are trying to move the budget in the House of Representatives. The Senate is still on recess until Thursday. And so it's unlikely how this is all going to land. This is a year where there are significant financial resources in state government, and so that is leading to some big ideas about what they'd like to do with those resources. The holdup right now is related to largely to the tax package that I'll talk about in a moment, and then other pet projects that lawmakers would like to get in the budget before the session ends. So let's talk a little bit about the state budget. Counties are very closely linked to the state budget, and so it's important that we watch it very closely. I do want to extend the caveat again that a lot of this information can change, and so please take it as it's how things stand right now. It could evolve. So the legislature has been focused on putting resources into priority areas that wouldn't surprise you: debt reduction, pay increases for employees, and education. A major tax proposal is on the table that would reduce income taxes substantially to a flat tax rate of 2.5%. That doesn't impact the counties directly, but it could impact cities because income taxes are shared with the cities. And so there is a conversation about how to hold them harmless, but that's not yet in the budget. What does impact counties are the changes to the property tax base. So just briefly, what this is about is shifting the burden of property taxes that are collected from businesses a little bit more heavily towards homeowners. We have something called assessment ratios that determine the value of your property that's taxed. It's 18% on businesses currently. It's 10% on homeowners. And so the legislature is phasing down that assessment ratio, and they've been doing it for many years. It has an impact of shifting your revenue mix, and it has the impact of possibly putting upward pressure on your property tax rate as you have to recapture lost revenues from that. And so that's something that we're paying a lot of attention to. We did raise concerns about the county impact, and they recognize that if you did raise your rates, it shifts more burden to the homeowners. And so what they've put in place is something called a homeowner's rebate to buy down some of that burden. It's in the education system. I'm not going to belabor you a whole lot about that. And that's helpful, and I want you to know that. But it is imperfect because it doesn't impact your secondary. It only impacts the primary. A couple other major county issues. The DJC fee impact does not impact you. That's a large county issue. We did see progress on removing the fee for the Department of Revenue. Yeah. We're hopeful that that's going to stick, and that'll save Yuma County about $123,000. There are major resources on the table for transportation and broadband that I'll talk about in a moment. And then we're also seeing a little bit of relief in the Altex payments. Altex is the Arizona Long-Term Care System. The county property tax pays a lot of resources to it. The state and federal government determine all of the policies around it. Still, you're going to pay about $9.7 million in the next fiscal year for the long-term care system. That's down from last year. But I want to extend the caveat that these are down because of federal policies, as well as the fact that a lot of folks aren't entering the system right now. This probably will rebound in the next year or two. And so we're really going to have to keep an eye on Altex payments. A few other items, and I'm not going to talk about all of these, but quickly, probation. There have been some changes in probation policies. One is that for future pay raises that the county extends to probation officers will be fully responsible for those pay raises. Currently, the state pays down the impact for state probation officers. They've changed that policy in the budget. And so we're going to have to work on that in the off season as well. Another long list of items that are in there, major expenditures on water infrastructure financing. And so about $200 million to help promote a financing structure for water development. And there's a lot of money, about $50 million being placed near border security. Of course, Yuma is very much going to receive those resources. These bullets are old on the border resources because that's being changed as we speak, and we'll send you a report on how that ultimately comes out. But I actually think the amendments are going to be better for the sheriff's departments that receive those resources. Just a couple of slides that show how they're divvying up the transportation resources, Yuma dollars for SR 95, and then some pavement preservation. They did put 2 projects near Yuma on the list. Again, this is something that I think can shift. Now, I still think that there's going to be resources for transportation that come to the area. It's how that's earmarked that I think is still up for grabs. We did take into the legislature a few bills. The 2 that I want to point out are on the lower right for you. We did make a policy change to military leave pay that promotes equity across classes in employment, and we changed the write-in candidates requirements for when you run for public office. Now, overwhelmingly, what we spend our time on is reactive advocacy, and I have a few slides that I want to touch on here for you. First is elections. So there were over 130 bills related to election reform put in the process. That is a mammoth amount of policy that's put up for consideration. I want to extend my appreciation to your recorder, Robin Stallworth-Poquette, who is an expert and a leader among the recorders in the state as it relates to elections. And her work, along with the Arizona Association of Counties and Jen Marson, who represent the recorders, has done Herculean work to get in good quality information to lawmakers as they're evaluating all of these elections bills. The 2 big ones that I'll point out, already signed into law, 1485 related to the permanent early voting list, where they will create a mechanism where if folks aren't using it to mail in to vote over the course of 2 years, then it's possible that they'll fall off that list. And in the lower right, 1713, which is about enhanced identification requirements on early voting. And so right now you just sign. This would require you to put your driver's license and other identifying marks on that as well. These are still in process, and I think something likely will come out as it relates to additional hand counting and possibly identification. The pandemic piece, they passed several bills related to the pandemic, most of which are just dealing with problems that they felt existed, wanting the AG to review the governor's executive orders, dealing with license revocation under a pandemic, and of course mandates, mask mandates. Probably most importantly from our proactive advocacy side was we worked on 1377, the civil liability bill, which is just putting in place some protections for government as well as businesses, is if you do all the right things to protect the public, then it minimizes, your lawsuit exposure. What we're still waiting on here is how they choose to deal with referring something to the voters about calling the legislature back into session when there is an emergency order. One of the frustrations by lawmakers is when the emergency order went into play, they didn't have a seat at the table because the session was out. That's how our structure is designed. They did have the ability to call themselves into special session, but it would require a supermajority. And so the majority at the legislature is looking at how to just trigger special sessions in the future. I wanted to put these up here just to show you the very additional policy areas that our team works in. Michael Madden and Robin Hilliard do a great job chasing down, amending, or defeating bills that impact our interests. And this is just a sample of those that were in the process. Since the session is not over, we still have to be very diligent. And the most dangerous period of a legislative session is right now, when committees aren't happening, everything's happening behind the scenes, and we got to wait until we see things come out. And so there are a few bills related to county authority on land surveys that we're paying attention to, as well as a few others that could pop up. Now, typically when I stand before you to give this report, we are fully talking about the next legislative session and preparing for it. And so we're in that weird time where we have to start transitioning into our off-season work plan. What you see here is we will provide a webinar to fully go over the state legislative session when it's over. And that is when we'll start moving into implementation mode. We'll have legislative summaries and other things to help your team get up to speed. For proposals that you might be interested in running next year, we're asking you to please submit those by August 8th to allow us to process them in time for consideration at what we call our Legislative Policy Summit that this year is going to be hosted in Prescott. And so that's where we'll put our legislative agenda together. And of course, we don't meet as a board over the summer, but we do have managers meetings to kind of keep the conversation rolling. And so this is kind of our roadmap going forward, and we're hopeful that you will plug into these meetings and participate in them as well. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll thank you for all the time. And again, thank you all for the involvement in the association. Happy to stand for any questions.
Well, first of all, thank you for the leadership. I mean, you know, when things get tough, the tough get going, and you guys really, you know, stepped up to the bat. It was, like I said, it was a very difficult year. Everything was remote, and it implied that a lot of the personal relationships that you rely on to get some things done just were there, but not in the usual normal way. So, you know, I just want to commend not just you, but your staff, and just keeping everything together and keeping everything going forward, and looking out for the well-being of the counties. You always do a great job, but this was a very difficult, different time. So I wanted to start by thanking you. Any of the board members have any questions on the report? No? Great, thank you very much, and hopefully the drive will be as pleasurable going back as it was coming in.
All right, thank you very much, members of the board.
All right, the next item in the agenda is, and we're not telling you to go right now. The next item in the agenda is Paul, we call him Brinkley, but I think I've been told many times Riley, Executive Director of the Yuma Center of Excellence for Desert Agriculture, and he will provide a verbal update to the Board of Supervisors on the COVID-19 early warning testing project. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recently gave you an update, so I'm not going to reiterate that or have a presentation, but just suffice it to say that thanks to you guys and your vision and your support, we were able to set up a great lab, able to man it for a year, and that, believe it or not, is coming to a close at the end of this summer from when we first came and asked for support. With the lab, in partnership with the Public Health Services District and the State Department of Health, outbreaks were averted, we believe, at DAPAC, at the AWC dormitories in our communities. You also funded a 12-week schools pilot project, schools testing. Of course, they went remote as soon as we went to start that up, so we had to wait till they came back in session. When they came back in session in March, then we did initiate that project, and they've recently finished their semester. So we were able to get 10 weeks of those 12 weeks in for that pilot project. And interestingly, you know, the purpose of that pilot project was to see what it would tell us to test the schools. Are kids using the facilities? Are we getting a good sample? What we found was, for the most part, was a non-detect, but we did have one school where twice in a row, so it wasn't just a fluke, we did detect COVID, and that led to an alert in the last 2 weeks of school to the parents and teachers and whatnot. And I know I had at least one call from a parent wondering, should I be sending my kids to school? But it had an impact, just like the public alerts from the community testing. So hopefully that helped there also. And we did learn that we can detect it when it is, if it is rising in a school. As you know, the lab and the manpower was expanded with funding from the state to do community-wide monitoring. All the municipalities participated in that over the last 6 months. That comes to a close, that funding, that pilot project comes to a close at the end of this month. We've had great participation from all the municipalities and also the schools and the hospital and other stakeholders, and of course, public health officials like Diana. We've talked with all the municipalities that have been part of that, and they would all like to continue doing that. Question is where the funding would come from to do that, but if we can either get them to fund it at some level or find other funding, they would all like to continue. They found it valuable information and information they could act on. So really, thanks to your guys' support that got this all going, we were able to set kind of the gold standard for how communities use waste-based epidemiology and how they respond to it. We had hired a visiting researcher, Dr. Bradley Schmitz, who's really become, we could handle the science part of it, but we didn't know what we were doing when it came to interpreting that for public health. And so Dr. Schmitz is active around the country and really around the world in this kind of thing. And he really feels like Yuma County has set the standard for not just how you do this, but how you involve the community partners and are ready to react to the findings. So what we believe is, we came in right in the middle of that big surge, the biggest surge that we had. And what we demonstrated was that the tool works. The waste-based epidemiology works. How to respond to that data is always evolving depending on the situation, what's going on with the pandemic. So what does the future look like? Clearly, there's not as much urgency going forward for testing. But like I say, things evolve, things change. The virus is still here. In fact, in last week's samples, two of our communities were increasing in our samples. So, and you've seen the news around the world. There's over 70 countries that are increasing right now. So it's still here. We don't want to forget about it. We want to keep an eye on it. We know that DatePack and Arizona Western College want to continue with their testing and response. When we find it, they respond with Regional Center for Border Health has been a great partner in that, and they find out who's infected, whether they're symptomatic or not, and isolate them. We also know that, as I mentioned, all the municipalities would like to continue. We've got one thing that's been developed through this is Dr. Schmitz has developed a model, which is really just getting implemented now, that adds context to that level of concern that we put out there, in that it estimates the actual number of people that are shedding in that sample when we see an increased level of concern. So that would add some context to the, like I say, to the level of concern that we report. We don't really know the seasonality of this disease yet. It hasn't been long enough to see what the seasonality is. We know that new variants are evolving over time, and as a border community, we could easily be the gateway for those new variants coming in. Any one of them could break through the vaccine. Luckily, that hasn't been happening yet. But even if it doesn't, vaccine boosters may be needed at some point. We don't know when. The science isn't there yet to know when that would be. So it seems prudent to maintain kind of a watchful eye, at least, of what's happening so that we don't get caught off guard if something starts happening again. Waste-based epidemiology is a very cost-effective way to do that. From a few samples, you're testing everybody, and not just people that are sick or going to their doctor. And then it can also monitor for other threats in the future if there's things we want to watch for, whether that's noroviruses or enteroviruses, and then there's also other things like opioids and whatnot that can be monitored at the community level. So after my last update, I appreciated your kind words, and you expressed interest in supporting the ongoing operation as a community resource to make sure that we had it here to continue the fight against COVID. So today I wanted to ask formally if you would consider funding us keeping 2 of our technicians. We've had 3 with the schools project and the state project, but keeping 2 of our technicians in the lab for another year to keep that lab open as a community resource. Knowing that the lab can be open and functional, that'll allow me to go out and find other facilities like DatePack and AWC that might want to utilize it to keep our workforce safe. We're also working with Department of Health Services and Diana to see if there's any targeted funding coming that could support the kind of community-wide monitoring we're doing, which again could be done with less frequency, less cost because we already have the equipment. And instead of testing twice a week, it could go to once a week or once every 2 weeks just to keep an eye on, make sure nothing's sneaking up on us. We did recently execute a collaborative agreement with NAU. NAU was funded by the Board of Regents to do genetic sequencing, so that they can find any new variants that come out. And so we'll be providing samples to them on an ongoing basis. So not only to identify variants like the India virus, the India variant and UK variant, but anything new that comes along, whether it starts here or comes in here from somewhere else. And then also there's some desire to write some grants for long-term monitoring. The NIH and CDC both want like 30% of utilities nationwide to be doing this waste-based monitoring to keep an eye on things. So we believe there'd be some grant funding there if we have the lab operational. So based on all that, like I say, it would be really key to keeping the lab open if we knew we'd have those 2 technicians. So I just wanted to thank you for your key role in making this happen, and appreciate your consideration of that level of support going forward.
Your request is timely. We're just about to approve tentative budget, which is where we set the cap. I mean, it's not where we're going to end up spending a lot of this money, but there's a lot of money coming down to treat or to deal with the pandemic. And I think that one of those things that it's essential is an early warning system. You know, a lot of what happened in the country, I believe, is a little bit related to that. We just didn't know how to handle it. We didn't know how to test for it early. We didn't know how to gear up for it early. So an early detection system is something very useful. The fact that it is what it is, you know, it doesn't take away from its effectiveness. And I think it probably adds more to its effectiveness than anything else. So you do have an amount that you have in mind. I suppose that, you know, you need to let Susan know, you know, exactly what it is, and we'll deal with it when we go through the tentative budget as a set aside of some sort. You know, we'll talk about it then. That's the time that we need to discuss budget items. But as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know about the rest of the board, we will be making that decision a little later in the agenda. But you know, likelihood, I personally would support it. So we'll just get the figures at the end.
What kind of money are we talking about? Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to discuss that on the
money?
budget. On the budget, this may be a little too early to get into discussion. This was more like a presentation, so we will be talking about it soon, and I mean this morning. So if you stay around a little bit, I'm sure Susan has information she can pass on to us at the proper time. Right? Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right. You know, before Craig leaves, I forgot to introduce you, and you probably already met Julio Alejandro Figueroa, who was here a few minutes ago. Did he leave? He left?
He walked out.
I was going to introduce him to you. He's our new legislative liaison, so-and-so. He's a new contact person, economic development and legislative liaison, and he was standing back there when I first thought about it.
He'll be here, yeah.
He'll be
He
here
did get a
later.
chance to meet
You met
Craig
before?
earlier.
We had an opportunity to visit this morning.
Oh, good. Then you met. All right. Well, I just didn't want to miss the opportunity. The next item in the agenda is the Public Works. It's a presentation of the neighborhood cleanup program. Before you begin, Mr. Scott, this is sort of like an outcome of a lady coming over and talking about cleanup. What was her name? Oh, you're gonna bring it in?
I think
Ann?
Josh is going to deal with that.
And Stuart.
Oh, Ann
Yeah,
Stewart.
yeah,
Well, I just
Ann
wanted to
Stewart.
make sure, you know, at least point out that sometimes when you come in and you bring in an issue that is pertinent and timely, as in this case it was, you know, we do have very, very good staff that looks into it and comes back with a solution if possible. So Josh, I should have let you get into that yourself.
That's okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Josh Scott, Public Works Director. I've worked with most of you over the last few years to organize neighborhood cleanups or desert cleanups, but we never had a formal program. And then back in January, Ms. Stewart came to the board meeting, spoke at call to the public. She had specifically mentioned a couple areas on Avenue 4E and around 32nd Street. And we worked with our counterparts at the city of Yuma to get that cleaned up, but it kind of made us realize we need to formalize some sort of a neighborhood cleanup program. So based on her suggestions, Public Works staff worked with Ian, and we came up with a formal program. It's presented in your agenda in draft format there. That program was kind of modeled up based on our Adopt a Highway program, which operates similarly, where we try and control litter within the right-of-way. This would take our services into a particular neighborhood. So it's a new program. I'm not sure what kind of response we're going to get, so we've set it up with a few caveats to roll out and make sure we can do this with the existing resources we have.
You know, when I look through it, you know, it's very similar to a spring cleanup drive, you know, where you
Yes.
tell the neighborhood, well, we're going to be in your neighborhood, we're going to be picking up this stuff. And so if you have it, you know, try to make it ready for us to be picked up, which is something that I think a lot of urban areas do, you know, spring neighborhood cleanups. The county is quite large. And obviously, we're going to be talking mostly about unincorporated areas, but you're still talking about doing it, what, 5 times a year?
Yes, we would do 5 neighborhoods per year. Yeah, with the goal to spread it out amongst the supervisor districts.
Well, obviously, if it is successful, which it will be, and it'd be a counterpoint, because we keep talking about what are we going to do if the dumping in the desert increases because of what we're discussing regarding the waste transfer sites. It may be a counterbalance to that a little bit, that we are actually taking an active role in trying to give people more of an opportunity to instead of dumping it out somewhere, to just put it out front, and you know, we'll pick it up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's our hope and the goal of this program, is to bring the services to the neighborhood so that they don't throw it in the alley or in the desert behind the subdivision or something like that. I think it also gives us an opportunity to advertise our services directly with the neighborhood, that we provide, you know, transfer site services, you know, 300 plus days a year. We have recycling programs, things like that, that some of our residents may not be aware of. Gives us a chance to actually touch and interact with the residents.
I think two things stand out. One, it's not going to cost them anything. And second, you can actually call up and say, you know, you can request a neighborhood cleanup, which is something that, again, I find that to be very, very commendable, that we actually, I hope you don't get overwhelmed by people calling up.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And you plan to do 5 turns into a 10, 15. I think we need to get people used to the fact that when we're talking about a neighborhood in the county, we're talking about a much larger area than just a block or something. You know, we need to make sure that we clear that up a little bit. And when you say there's no cost, there's obviously no cost to the beneficiary, but it will cost the county time and effort and money to get these projects done. I mean, it costs money to run anything. So I just don't want to get into a situation where you know, like the transfer station, it doesn't cost anyone anything, but it's starting to cost the county residents, you know, a substantial amount of money. I think we start off with, well, I hate to use the expression that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but you know, it does start this way. We start with something that is small, seeing if it works. If it works, we'll try to continue to do it as long as we're able to support it. And I guess we'll be monitoring as we go along to see, you know, if the cost is reasonable. We're going to be using equipment that we already have. We're going to be using staff we already have, and hopefully more volunteer staff that may help us on the cleanups. So at the end of the day, we may be able to keep it going if it doesn't become a huge task.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so one of the goals is to give the residents a conduit to us so we can get this scheduled. The alternative is they dump it in the desert and one of you contacts us and we go out and clean it up anyway. So
what?
This would be a way to try and centralize that cleanup, bring that service to the residents and catch it before it does end up.
And we appreciate that. And it's been like, I mean, we appreciate and we notice the difference that you guys have made, both you and David. I mean, you brought a sense of professionalism and you brought a sense of, let's go get this done, as opposed to thinking about it, maybe, you know, doing something about it. You guys keep bringing this stuff up and we appreciate it. I do, and I think the rest of the board does.
Thank you.
This is a great idea. And you can, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You can schedule it so this year you're going to do, you guys are in a lot of more unincorporated areas, but I only have about 4. So, you know, if that would work really well with once a year, you can send out a notice that says, clean up for the county, your little county island, you know, is at this time, you know, and then the following year you do another area. One time, but one little neighborhood a year.
It's a great idea. And what it does is it shows just the fact that, you know, if there's a problem out there we can help fix, we will step in and do it. And that to me is just the critical part of this, is the fact that the reaction was, there's a problem, and instead of thinking how not to do it, or instead of thinking of doing it halfway, you came up with a project, you know, a program itself. That is great. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to thank Josh. He worked with the Juvenile Detention Center.
Another Josh?
Tim Hardy, yeah. And the two of them put together and helped a senior in my neighborhood clean up their backyard with the youth that have to do community service the other day. So thank you very much for coordinating that with Tim and
Get him before he
getting that
retires.
done
Yeah,
for this little gentleman. Thank
I appreciate it. I merely took the call, but Mike Herrera, who's here with me, he's the one who worked with Tim to make sure he got
that was wonderful
Well,
for
Mr.
them.
Chair, I'd like to throw in my thanks too to Josh and his team, because there's been several different projects out in the foothills area that they jumped right in and helped out getting some areas cleaned up, and along with some graffiti that was popping up in the areas. They coordinated with adult probation or whoever they go through to get those areas cleaned up. And I just want to thank you and your men very much for the work you guys are doing.
Appreciate that all.
Okay, so this is where you say, okay, well, this is the program. Is there going to be some sort of formal action from our part that you would request at some other board meeting? Is there going to be a budget set up, or is it just going to be, like fused into everything we do? Susan?
Can you take that? So, yeah, so the way the program's written now, we can do it with existing resources. Again, we'll see what the response is. If it's overwhelming, I may be back to say there is a budgetary implication to this. But until then, I don't believe we need any formal action on your part.
That's because people stayed home when the pandemic hit. There's a lot of stuff left.
But if you have any comments, I'll take them. I'd like to get this finalized so I can start advertising this summer and taking applications so we can get our first cleanup scheduled this fall after we
I also
kind
like
of back
the
off on the
timeline,
road work.
so we're not doing it in the middle of summer.
Yeah. Well, summer's our busy season for the roads, so it works out well.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't sound like Elvis Presley here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
All right, well, move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar, where the following items are listed under the consent agenda, and they will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion, unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and items. We do have a lot of items. I think it's like
it's huge.
17. Does anybody want to pull anything? I want to pull 13. Okay, and number 14. Anything else? No? 13. I want to pull 13 and 14. I want to put it item 8, but I'll leave that gas in area for another time. Anybody else or anything else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve consent calendars 1 through 17 with the exception of 13 and 14.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second to approve consent calendar items 1 through 17 with the exception of 13 and 14. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, then we'll open up item number 13, which is for the public health districts to authorize the health district director to sign all necessary documents to enter into an agreement as per request to bid invitation YCMMU 2021 with quality bands and especially vehicles as the selected vendor for the purchase of a mobile medical unit vehicle. The reason I brought it up is I saw the bids, right? And I saw the wide range of vehicles that were available to you. And I hope you didn't choose it because it was the cheapest one, the lowest bid one. Because in reality, I've seen those vehicles that are mobile, and some of them look like luxury, RVs, and they're stocked up, but they probably need a driver or somebody like that. So I hope that the reason you picked this one up, because we can't see any of them, right? I wish you had picked a Mercedes-Benz one that looks really nice. But,
Yeah, really.
But I just wonder, again, I hope it wasn't picked just because it is the lowest bid one, because at this particular time, I think that the county has done a great job of reaching out to where people need the vaccination, for example, or the assistance. This, to me, adds a very, very critical tool in that process. And I think that a rapid response vehicle or a vehicle you can send out, it's a critical part of what I think a new improved health department needs to have. So having said all that, is there anything else you want to add to it?
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board, Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health. We picked that vehicle because it was cost effective and it suited our needs, and it's easy to drive around. There was a lot of options,
It's a
and
transit van.
it was very exciting to see a lot of the options available, but we feel that this at least will give us a good start to go out there and expand our ability to go out into the community. So we're hopefully optimistic that this will work really well.
All right. Well, so it wasn't because it was the lowest bid one. It was because it met all the requirements you guys
It
had.
met the requirements. It was cost effective, so we're excited.
All right. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the item as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion and second to approve the item as presented. Anybody else or any discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anybody opposed? No? Okay, so it carries. I'm going to the next item, which is facilities management. Approve the real property lease agreement between Shadle Investment Properties LLC and Yuma County for the property located at 2550 and 2542 South 4th Avenue to provide needed temporary office workspace for assessor, recorder, treasurer, and election services department and staff during construction of the new permanent facility, and authorize the chairman to execute said agreement. The reason I bring it up is because it seems to be well, the decision has been made to build a new building, and we know where, right? So this is kind of the next step, trying to get ready for that to happen relatively soon. Is that what I assume is happening?
Chairman Reyes and members of the board, Dave Hill, and Director of Facilities Management. And yes, that is exactly right. We're just trying to line everything up. It is a progression, of course, sort of a chess game, if you will, and trying to keep the pieces in the right place. Obviously, with this plan, there is a need to relocate temporarily the assessor, recorder, treasurer, and election services departments from their facility while that project is ongoing. And after looking extensively, there are very few facilities that just happen to be available that are the right size and generally the right configuration. This was one of them. I think we feel pretty fortunate to have found it that has a fair amount of large space. And I apologize, I meant to bring a floor plan to project so you could see what this building looks like, and it got left behind. But the amount of open space is really lends itself well to the activities that will be going on in this facility. So we wanted to move quick. It looked like there were other parties interested in the facility as well, so we didn't want to miss out on that issue.
How difficult is the technical part going to be, David?
Not difficult at all. We did walk through with Cliff Summers, our IT director, and others, including our own staff for security and access control systems, and everything is in place. It's just a matter of minimal piece of equipment need to be brought in to make it connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The reason I bring this up is because if I am, I am aware that some of the equipment that we got for the elections department, for example, the ballot counting machines, those type of things are pretty heavy, pretty sizable, let's say that. Maybe it's not like a copying machine. They're a lot bigger, and that's why I was asking, because I saw the elections department here. I suppose all this has been coordinated with the election department, the treasurer. They're aware of the facility and what they can do with the facility, and it's not going to be like a major, oh, there you go. I didn't see you there. The elections department, the recorder, the elections department, and the treasurer. That I just wanted to make sure, and it's good for me to see that all of you are here, because before we make a decision to go ahead and get you some temporary office space, we wanted to make sure that you knew what it was about. Because I thought, okay, well, it isn't simple to even to temporarily locate such sensitive departments as the elections department and the treasurer's department and so
I'll
forth.
certainly defer to elections and recorder if they wish to speak, but it sounds like they have a plan in place on how to handle the
It wasn't
major
more, it wasn't more, an explanation. It was more, are you aware and are you okay with it? That's more like the question. And you guys are behind here, so I see you shaking your head. Yes. So you are aware and you are okay with it, and you think you can handle that.
Yeah, and again, I don't think any place is perfect for an ideal setup. I wish this had more parking, for example, but we found ways to make it look like it'll work for us.
It's on 4th Avenue.
It's on 4th Avenue, correct.
You guys are okay with it? Say, shake your head yes, and we'll take that as a recorded yes, we are okay with it. All right, any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
It's the big rectangular building right next to McDonald's, right?
That is correct.
With the false front on the front, or the glass windows on the front.
Chairman
Maybe
Reyes,
why?
Supervisor Pancrazzi, it almost feels like the building is sideways, the narrower end facing
Yes.
4th Avenue.
Yeah,
The main
oh,
entrance
okay.
is actually on the south.
Okay.
Although, again, it lends itself nicely to put 3 departments, and there's 3 points of access, so they'll each have their own designated area.
So I gather the city
public
didn't offer
access.
their building for $1 a year, would they?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's the old Y building.
As far as elections are concerned, are we gonna be able to function in election capacity if we're still there?
Again, I'll gladly defer if Robin wants to speak.
Elections is a concern.
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor Lyons, correct, and I'll have Tiffany come up and clarify on the machine, the equipment you had a question about. We've made it clear to Mr. Hilland, and he's worked through some timelines with us. Our big concern is that it's a temporary space and that we would be in our permanent space to conduct the presidential election for 2024. That's really kind of the big crux of it. We do feel the space is adequate for the midterm election for 2022, and we've outlined some space. Mr. Hilland did a fantastic job going through a draft floor plan for not only our equipment, but the early voting process for people coming in, adequate parking, that type of thing. So we're not concerned about that for the midterm election. And I have expressed to many of you, I am very concerned about the presidential election. So I'm hoping that we will be in a permanent space for that larger scale election. And I guess I would like the elections director, Ms. Anderson, to clarify our what we've worked out on our equipment. And what we haven't worked out as of now, we feel confident we will be able to work out with Mr. Hillen.
All right, stay up. I need to ask you a couple of questions before you leave, so just, Robin, stay up.
Chairman Reyes, as far as the equipment for elections, we do have space identified in the secured area of the building for anything that needs to be climate controlled. There's an exterior storage, it's almost like a garage, that we will also be able to use for things that do not need to be climate controlled, such as our signs and stanchions and ballot paper, not for express votes. That's thermal paper that needs to be climate controlled. But there are things that can be secured in that external building. So we will have plenty of storage as well as having the security in place. As Robin mentioned, Mr. Hillen has been really open to our needs that are specific to the security of our equipment and the process as we conduct the gubernatorial election in 2022.
A couple of things. One is obviously that this has been, cost has been considered somewhere along the line, right? Now, that's okay. I need you, Robin, and you to stay up a little bit longer for the budget review, because I need to talk about funding. You are not going to be allowed to use anybody else's funding this year. I mean, somebody offers to help out in an election, there's no way you can accept that. So that means to me that we need to address the issue that if we had a problem or an emergency, funding needs to be set aside to deal with that without having to go through a lot of gyrations. Elections are pretty delicate and they're pretty quick. I mean, once they start happening, they start happening. There are deadlines to be met and so forth. So please remain a little bit longer because I'd like to talk to you both about what to do in case you need some funding and you don't have it in your budget, right?
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, yes, we will stay.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, provided the costs come down, then we'll authorize the budget expenditures for the new building, but at their current levels, that's why we've decided to delay. So I just want to be able to address the presidential election right now as well, because I can't vote for something if it's 300% over budget just because of escalated prices right now.
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor Lyons, I understand that concern, and I suppose I'm not aware of those conversations, but I think that's my one thing that we have been concerned about is the timing of the temporary placement, and we need to be somewhere we can conduct a 2022 election. I would have to say we're not able to conduct the 2024 election in that building, so that's a concern that we need to look at down the road. I was hoping that we would be in our permanent location by 2024. If that's not possible, I mean, we could discuss that with Mr. Hillen and see what other accommodations could be made. But we don't feel confident that we could adjust the facility adequately for a presidential.
much like we have had to accommodate this
Right.
last.
So I gather that what we're talking about here is a decision that the board needs to make about whether to go forward quick enough to be able to have a facility available for you to do the presidential election in 2024. In other words, whatever we decide to do in terms of the building, the start of construction, if construction is going to go on, the start of construction and the timeline that essentially gets you back in there in time. I understand that either way, the board has decided to proceed with, with the building, process. We've chosen the what do we call it?
Model.
The model. Yeah, we've chosen which way to go about it. What we haven't done yet is say, okay, well now this begins the process. So that's why when this came up, I said it's a little bit kind of premature, but I understand the timing issues. If we make this decision, we can make it so that instead of keeping a schedule, we delay it more. In other words, instead of finding a place you guys can go to with plenty of time and able to do that efficiently, we decided all of a sudden, okay, we're going to kick that start, and then you can't find your place to do what you need to do. So I can see the benefits of this, but I can also see the point about, okay, well, what are we going to do? Let's decide fully what we're going to do and how much we're going to spend before we go ahead and start moving people temporarily. Right. So I get that, okay? And again, this is why I brought this up, because I knew it was a little bit, it's always better to get ahead of the wave here than to be waiting for it to crash on you. So thank you very much, ladies. And like I said, I'd like you to remain a little bit longer. We've got the budget coming up pretty quickly. Well, if I move this along. David, I understand, and I think it's good to secure the building. I hope it doesn't cost us a lot of money that we can later on say, hey, wait a minute. Okay, I do understand that once we make a commitment to secure the building, it does begin a process. It's not like, it won't, but we haven't finalized the idea of exactly the timeframes to build. It's kind of I understand what Supervisor Line's coming from, because anything we do in the construction field right now feels like it's really difficult to do it today. Because of, and he knows what we're talking about. We're talking about price increases that are incredibly difficult to deal with.
Mr. Chairman, and to your point, it's not only that, over the last couple of weeks, just the availability of key components to build a building. It's not just the price increase, but the supply chain is broken. Yeah, so to wait, up to a year for things sometimes. I'm being told, for example, right now, that I can't have product till January or February of next year.
Yeah. No, and we understand that. It's a matter of deciding whether that's going to get better or worse. I think at a particular point when you've been in the construction field for a long time, and I know Jonathan, Supervisor Lyons, and I have been in it, we hardly ever see it get any better than what it gets today. But this is very unusual. What we're going through is way beyond the, quote, normal inflation, escalation of costs that are gradual. This has been a very sudden one, and it's hit us all in projects that we felt we could do for so much, and now they're 30, 40% higher. So I do understand the concern. But at this particular time, we were talking about trying to find a location for the assessor, treasurer, elections department, and recorder to be able to do what we need to do if we do it, right? So, I think we got to choose to go forward or to stop. And I think that going forward presents challenges, but stopping, it's also a challenge. I don't think, I've yet to see we're stopping and waiting until later. I'm reminded of the comments that are made continually about, you could have done that for $3 million in 10 years ago, and now it's going to cost you 30. So I don't ever remember time being on your side when it comes to the construction industry, but maybe today, maybe this time it could happen. Those increases are way beyond normal, the ones we're experiencing right now.
Chairman Reyes and board members, yes, absolutely, and that, as facilities management director, it's been challenging lately, to say the least. We have a number of projects going on, and trying to keep up with the pricing fluctuations, availability of supplies is a challenge. And so we definitely have taken that into account. I have had some preliminary conversations with our architectural team and a number of other contractors about other items, but nobody has a crystal ball. The general sense is it seems like plants and mills are starting to produce again. People are getting back into workplace a little bit gradually. We're hoping that we've hit the worst of it and things will start to come back.
It seems to be the ongoing perception in the industry that those price increases have peaked in the production. And
That's the
you know,
hope.
some of the materials that we use are winter. They're not used in the winter back east because it's too cold. So there seems to be some light at the end of that tunnel. We hope it's not a train, but you know, I think we just need to keep moving. We just need to keep moving a little bit. Okay, so
I just have a question. I'm trying to, and maybe Susan, you have an answer to this, but I'm kind of confused. I mean, I think last time we gave direction, we chose a plan and we gave direction, but I don't remember us halting it. I remember talking about that, you know, about construction, what was going to cost, but I don't remember actually giving direction to stop what we had already approved.
We haven't stopped anything.
Yeah,
We're
so
actually
what-
talking about what's
No,
in
we're
the
ta-
budget. I think you're just talking about what's in the budget, that there's the budget has the CIP
But-
in it.
But regardless what's in the budget, we all know what's in the budget, but if it's gonna cost whatever it costs, either we continue or we put a halt to it, because we're gonna buy a property and lease a property. If we're gonna stop it and say, well, it's gonna take us 5 more years,
we're not. We're gonna go
and
through
we're gonna spend money, I mean, this has been what's been going on in the past, so I don't wanna see that again.
Yeah, the staff hasn't been stopping anything. The architect is looking at the design for the option that you selected, which is option 3.
Yes.
Which is, and you'll see also on the agenda is the purchase of the building, that you're going to then tear all that down and
Nothing
build
stopped.
a 3-story
He
building
just
there.
made a
So
comment about
that
it.
is
Yeah.
all
Being careful.
moving forward. And I think Jonathan's just expressing concerns about what the price tag might end up being once
But
we
we'll look
go
at
out
that.
for bids. And then at that point, when you go out for bids and you get the bids back, then you can say, oh, wait a minute,
Oh,
this is
it's
too big. Or say, you know what, we need to move full speed
Yeah,
ahead.
I think this
We're
is
not
like-
stalling
But I
it.
think-
So
but
you
before
guys are
that-
having a discussion, but the staff has not
But
stopped its progress.
before we do that, we already spend money on a property, and we already are
we're
spending
committed
money
to
on
do it.
leasing a building.
I think it's a timing
So
issue, guys.
it's
I think it's
either
a timing issue.
altogether
It's not
or-
the decision.
Because it's not.
I think you're talking to each other, not to me.
Well, I just want to.
No, it's a message.
I want you to say, if you recall, did we give direction to go for it, or we, you know, that was my understanding. I made a decision on that.
Right, yeah.
I think that
But
decision.
when I hear halting it, well.
We're not halting anything. We're just simply saying, look, we got to be careful. When we get to the point where we know how much it's going to cost, then a decision needs to be made, a final one. Everything else will continue to move forward, and that's what you, David, that's what you're bringing us, and that's what's happening in the agenda. Everything continues. This was just sort of like, okay, guys, this is a pretty tough time. We may end up, you know, with a budget that is way beyond what we thought, and when we do that, if it gets to that point, then a decision needs to be made whether to proceed or not. Like any other project, if the project ends up being too much, if using as an example the van or the medical van the unit that we just bought, if it had come over budget, you would have thought, okay, well, maybe we had to stop back and, you know, that's the thing we go through every time we make a decision that where we're going to spend money. And I think that this was just sort of like a hope. It was one of those statements that said, you know, we'll continue with this, hoping everything will work out at the end. But at the end, we're going to make a decision based on cost. And that's it. So we need to continue with this as part of the plan that we had already. We have already made a decision on that. Okay, so David, I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and continue with this item as presented. And again, just be careful as you go forth that if there's anything that comes up that seems unusual in terms of cost or something, don't bring it back to us. That's all we want.
And if I may, Chairman Rice and board members, the next step, as County Administrator Thorpe alluded to, is the design phase, which isn't affected, of course, by the cost increases. So we're just entering into those negotiations with the architect. We'll spend the next several months in that design phase before we get to any point where we're ready to start getting kind of hard bids. And even the project delivery
this
month
is not
under
the kind of
consideration.
decision you can wait on. This is the kind of decision that needs to be made soon so that we can be ready for the midterms,
Right.
elections especially. And this is what this is about, getting ready to take on a midterm. All right. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve as presented?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Whatever the motion is, could it be approved, subject to legal review?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Most of our
Mr. Chairman,
decisions.
I'd like to make the motion to proceed as discussed, subject to review by our legal department.
I'll second that.
I think you review everything anyway, but yeah, fine, we'll make it so that it's a point, yeah. You know,
Construction guys always do.
if legal comes up and says you can't do that, that's legal review right there. But anyway, we'll
It's
make the
still in the
motion.
preliminary review stages, so
Okay,
we want
all
to
right.
make sure
So
you
the
folks
motion
understand that.
is to approve the item as presented, pending legal review, right?
Okay.
Is there a second?
I seconded it.
All right, so there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. And I am trying to move this fast, guys, but this is a very large agenda. And I know the looks. We're gonna call in Mrs. Daniela Vega Esparza to the dais because I'm calling in I'm basically opening up the Housing Governing Board for discussion calendar. So I'm gonna get her chair. She's here, right?
Oh, Tony and your shoulder.
That's okay. Better put yours
I
back.
know, no.
Otherwise, I'm
He fell off
dumping
the
it on
ladder.
yours.
Missed it by that much.
Go ahead. There you go. That's gonna take me 2 days to get back from. All right, so I'm gonna open up the governing board, the Housing Governing Board. We'll open up one item, and that the item is to conduct a public hearing to allow the public to comment on the Yuma County Public Housing Agency Annual Plan Admission, Annual Plan, Admission and Continued Occupancy Policy, and Section 8 Administrative Plan. Now, we do this every year. It's kind of sort of like something that HUD, normally, Housing and Urban Development, will request from us to do. Come in, Mr. Roldan. Do you want to explain what we're gonna do?
Yes, good morning, Chairman and members of the board. The only thing, this is something that we do every year. We approve the plan and then we send letters to our tenants, public housing and Section 8. So if they have any questions, they can come in and comment, just comments to the plan. That's basically what it is.
Okay, I need to open it to the public. So I'm
Correct.
going to, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the hearing to the public. Is there anybody in the public that wants to make a comment on the plan or any of its components? If not, I'm going to move it right back to the board for the board's decision, and the decision is to approve it.
I move that we approve.
Is there?
I'll second.
Let her
Oh,
say.
sorry. Go ahead.
So there's been a motion and a second to update, to review and update the Public Housing Agency Annual Plan and to approve it as presented. Anything else that you need in that motion, that's fine?
That's it.
All right, so anybody else have any questions about it? It's been motion and second. No? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Is there a, no? No? So motion carries unanimously? Is there a no or no? There's no no's, so motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That took a lot of effort from my part. I don't think I'm moving that chair back until the end of the meeting.
I'll do it for you, Tony.
All right, there you go. Put it in front like that. Take it like that. Yeah, that was all right.
Okay, can you get past mine?
Uh-oh. I wanted to do that. Maybe I get him tired, you know.
I don't think so.
Less feisty?
No, that wouldn't work. I'm gonna move on then. I'm going to adjourn the Yuma County Housing Board and reconvene as the Yuma County Board of Supervisors in regular session, and we'll open the discussion calendar. Finally, the first item in the discussion calendar is discussion and possible action regarding COVID-19 updates and activities by the County Health Director, Diana Gomez.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health. Just a quick update on our vaccination efforts. We've approximately vaccinated about 171,000 individuals of Yuma County. Of those, approximately 80,000 have been fully vaccinated. There's been a decrease in testing around the county, but also our positivity rate has gone down. We're hovering around 2%. So we're making progress. The vaccine is safe and effective and readily available at most pharmacies throughout the county, at different clinics. We continue to expand our efforts to go out into the community. Bless you.
Oh, thank you.
That's okay. We have a background noise in the back over there with Mr. Bicycle. Go ahead. I don't think he noticed it.
and make sure that we make vaccine accessible. So this mobile unit will help us expand that. We're also partnering with other entities. This weekend, we're partnering with the University of Arizona coming up to go ahead and do additional outreach as well. So again, our goal continues to be making sure that we have vaccine available throughout the county. We're currently vaccinating with the Pfizer vaccine 12 and over. We continue to host clinics at the health department Monday through Thursday from 8:30 to 11:30. All 3 vaccines are available. We just encourage people to call ahead, make sure that their vaccine is available on that particular day that they want to come in. But again, the goal remains to just make sure that we continue to make that accessible to people throughout the county. There will be some canvassing going around the community, just making sure that there's some outreach, additional pushing for to highlight the availability so that people know that, what the closest site is if they decide to get vaccinated. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? I just want to say before we end the meeting today that we're not totally out of the woods here, that we've got, and that the way we are sitting as a border area puts us in a very difficult situation because if they open up the border, which has been restricted so far, we're going to get an inflow of people who may or may not be vaccinated. And that, to me, creates a particularly, well, if not, for lack of a better word, a particularly thorny item that we need to deal with. And that's the fact that we're in a region. We're not, a little town in the middle of, the road, and, we're not Gila Bend or, a place that you go by and it's sort of geographically isolated. We are next to a larger town, a much larger town, and we need to be cognizant of that. And hopefully our petition to share some vaccines with our counterparts across the border, especially vaccines that may expire. It's really an idea that has taken hold, and hopefully we'll get faster response from the government, because essentially I just got a letter, I think 2 weeks ago or a week ago, or 10 days ago, about what we requested back a month ago or a month and a half ago at a meeting. Unfortunately, some of the response times to some of these requests that we put in front of the government, the federal government, have been slow in coming. And if there's something that I think makes a difference in this pandemic, is fast response. Just the kind of response you guys have put in place to deal with most of these issues. So thanking the governor for making his moves quick enough, I would say that we need the federal government to respond the same way and allow us to deal with these problems that are in front of us that are different from anywhere else. Again, I'd like to thank the county health department, your response to this thing. After you decided to take your vaccine program on the road, it's been enormously successful as far as I'm concerned, especially in South County, where there's still some need, but you guys keep at it. And so the only thing is left to say is, like I said, we're not out of the woods yet. We need to continue. And more than anything else, I think that we need to stop being reactive and start getting proactive in some of these issues. And I think that's part of what Mr. Brierly? God, I can't get it. Brierly. That's part of what Mr. Brierly is telling us. And I think Tony Badilla, who's back there, would probably understand that this is sort of a volley of, warning that these things can happen. And if and when they happen, we need to be better prepared next time. Right? Any comments? Anything? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Get your stuff back. And the next item in the agenda is an appointment, 3 individuals to 2021 Yuma County District Commission at large positions pursuant to resolution number 2021-04 adopted on May 3. I, for one, I'm not ready, Tiffany. I've been on vacation for a while. If I read the legislative report, the legislature has moved the deadline back for supervisory districts to 2022, what I read?
Chairman Reyes, yes. Tiffany Anderson, Elections Director for Yuma County. The legislature and governor have approved legislation to move the deadline for supervisorial districts to July 1st of 2022.
But what does that mean in terms of the overall work of the commission, in terms of is that all they're not going to do just that, are they?
Supervisorial districts as well as the AWC community college districts is something we're also considering at this point. We do have the first redistricting advisory commission meeting scheduled for next Monday at 4 p.m. That certainly can be changed if necessary. It hasn't been publicly posted yet. If your board is not prepared to appoint the remaining 3 members, the only thing that I would advise is that the resolution for the Redistricting Advisory Commission that you approved states that it must be, the first Redistricting Advisory Commission meeting must be held within 30 days of appointment. I may need guidance from legal on that, if that means full appointment or the initial appointment of members. So that's what I'm unsure of at this point.
Well, maybe I'm the only one that's not ready. Is everybody else ready to appoint the commission? I mean, I particularly, I'm not, because I haven't been around for a while. But I was out on vacation. When I came back, it was a little bit difficult. And I see the candidates, and I don't see any Hispanic candidate. I don't see anyone from District 4. I don't see a lot of things that I like to see. So maybe I just wanted to contact a few people and ask them to submit their appointments so we have a more balanced 3-member commission. But you know, I'm not the only one that makes decisions here. So is the rest of the board, have you thought about him, or have you come up with something?
We did receive 6 applications during the public period. We had approximately 4 weeks for people to submit their applications. If it's the pleasure of your board to extend that deadline, we certainly can, and can put out another press release stating that the deadline has been extended for anyone who's interested in applying, to be decided at a future date.
That's what I'd rather do. But again, I'm not the only one making decisions here. I mean, I don't see.
Mr. Chair, I was approached by several people that just inquiring, and I told them where to look, but you know, a lot of them were not aware. If one of us didn't tell them, they didn't know how to apply or to get in touch. And I know it was on the paper, but you know, not everybody gets the paper.
Only 33% of the population
you know,
gets the paper.
on our page, Yuma County page, but a lot of people don't. Like, you know, I always try to follow, or I tell them, you know, millions, like the chairman says, that are watching on TV and on Channel 77, but it's, I don't know how many millions or
I don't
where.
get that channel anymore.
Well, look, sometimes it behooves us, supervisors, to actually entice people that we think would be good for the commission. I just thought there would be more applications, and I didn't check until, you know, you send them. So when I looked at the number of people that had applied, and the makeup of the applications, I said, okay, we're in trouble now. I'm in trouble now, because really the choices are pretty. I mean, nothing to say about the people that applied. I mean, they're probably qualified. I just wish I had more choices to be able to mix it up. A 3-member board. This county is 60-some% Hispanic. I see one person maybe, and I know Mary, and I know she would do a good job. I just don't think I have enough in there to pick from, and that would be my interpretation of it. And I guess legal can tell me if we need to pass another resolution or need to pass something else to extend the time, but I would be willing to do that for another. I mean, the first determination should be, is the commission fully appointed? Because I think that what happened here is that we have 30 days after the commission's been appointed. I don't think the commission's been fully appointed yet until we appoint the last 3 members, but that will be my interpretation. What would be the legal interpretation of that?
The commission, as defined in the resolution, shall consist of 13 individuals, of which 3 of these would be from the county at large.
So until we appoint all 13, they really don't have a duty to meet.
Once that full commission is appointed,
then they have 30 days to meet.
Number starts to run.
I don't want to hold it up too long, but I would like to at least have another couple of weeks.
I don't see an issue why you couldn't do an extension. It's just your 30 days runs once you get your commission. I don't know how the timeline's going to run up against what they hope to accomplish. So I think what implicit is here is don't delay it too much longer.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So I can advise what I've had a recent communication with our redistricting consultants. The census data will be available in what they're calling a legacy format in the middle of August. It's about August 15th. But that legacy format still needs to be filtered properly. So I've been advised that Yuma County's numbers specifically won't be available until the end of August or beginning of September. At that point, we had discussed while they're working on draft maps, we could have our first public outreach to educate the community. However, it is June, so if you did want to delay the appointment of the final 3 members until the 21st, meeting on the 21st, or I believe your next meeting is July 7th after that point, we can certainly re-release the application, do another press release, share it with the cities and the town to hopefully spread the word a little bit more. I did share it with the 3 political offices here in Yuma County, the Republican Party, Democratic Party, and Libertarians, to share with their members. But there has been expressed interest, yeah.
Now, the second part of that to me, I think that we could probably do that. The second part of me is the way we're gonna go through the process of selecting 3. I'm not sure yet that we've set up a process.
I don't think
I
there
mean,
is one.
what do we vote on it? Do we do, I mean, you understand what I'm saying, right? We need to have a process. Also, I need to come up maybe with a process to select those 3, because even if there's only 6 or 7, there's still 6 or 7. And so what do we go about? Appointing one and see how many votes they get, and appointing the other one and seeing how much. We may get to 3, and the 3 of them, the first 3 that we suggest, will be the ones without getting a lot into the actual discussion. Do we do it? We're going to have to do it openly because that's the way we operate. But I mean, do we talk about the candidates' qualifications? Do we talk about their experience? Do we talk? Those type of things I think are a little.
They did submit a resume.
They did submit,
No, I know,
but it's not very thorough. I've read all of them, and they're not very. A couple of them are really. Mary's was, and.
See, that's what I'm talking about. We need to.
But Chris's wasn't very thorough.
How did we do it last time?
Do you remember 10 years ago?
No, I can't. Can't remember last year, much less 10 years ago. On top of that, I mean, I think that the process last 10 years ago was done by a Republican chairwoman or chairman. I don't remember exactly what it was, but maybe she or he knew how to run that. I mean, I've been around for 2 of them already. This is my 3rd one, I think. So I should know better.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to research that and advise you about what
Yeah,
happened
look,
last
guys, give me a couple of weeks, or give us a couple of weeks,
I don't mind
and
postponing the vote.
I'll come up with, some sort of process that, allows us to openly discuss it without being too offensive to the ones we don't consider to be too qualified.
Mr. Chairman, my suggestion would be wait till July 7th. That gives you more time to actually advertise and then reach out to individuals or give us their email addresses and we can forward the application form to them.
And I'll commit to coming up with a way that we can, we can narrow down the field. Maybe before we come in, get you 3 most, like choices, and then bring it up, and that way we don't have to discuss everyone's applications as opposed to just simply say, okay, which ones are the one that got more votes? I mean, without taking a vote, it would be just an individual choice. So that we can come up with something. I am not ready today.
Each of you have your top 3 list, and
That's
that's something that you share
And that way we
individually in
share
the
it, and
shared
the
members.
ones that come up on each list obviously have the votes necessary to be appointed, and then we'll get down to the ones that only 3 of them, 4 of them, and that kind of stuff. I think we need to go through a process. That I don't remember what we used last time, but we'll come up with a way to get this thing done. Now I don't know if June 21st is that our next. Or
No,
July 7th? Oh, that's our
We'll
next one?
delay this appointment to July 7th, and I'll work with County Administrator Thorpe to likely extend the application until the end of June, maybe the last Friday in June. That's a holiday weekend,
Not
so.
very many people that apply.
Yeah, okay, so we're gonna extend the application deadline to the end of June, and we're gonna bring it back July the 7th with the process to select those 3. We can't take any longer than that. Is that okay with you guys? So I will table the item, or I will continue the item. What's the right word here? Because
I just continue to July 7th.
Continue. We'll continue this item to July the 7th. Meanwhile, you follow directions and advertise again that we'll open it up some more. Okay, without getting into a lot of details. It's not, and I want to make it clear, it's not the candidates that have applied fault. It's not anything that we don't see enough quality on them. It's just that we'd like to have a broader number of candidates comply,
Well,
okay?
we don't even have any.
And please be-
from
oh, yeah.
all the districts.
Yeah,
so.
and please tell the candidates to be as, what's the word I'm searching, as
Thorough?
thorough, yeah. To add more stuff that makes us, choose those decisions.
Experience.
Yeah, because if they just, put an application and they don't go ahead and give us their background, it'll be difficult because they may be known to one of us, but they may not necessarily be known to the rest. So, they need to be a little more broad, to be broader on their description of their experience, okay?
And I will contact the members that you've already appointed to notify them of the delay in that first redistricting advisory commission
All right.
meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item, another one of those, is the discussion and action to authorize the acquisition of the property taking into account new appraised value located at 185 South Main Street by purchase of condemnation. And to give you a little bit of background on this, last time we had decided to, I think we gave direction to you to go ahead and find out if if the owner of the property was willing to sell, and if he was willing to sell, for how much. And without getting into a lot of details, this is basically the outcome of that particular process, and it's more on the open agenda so that we can make decisions on it.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, Dave Hillen, Director of Facilities Management. Yes, that is correct. Last time we were here, we were directed to make an inquiry along with the appraisal report that we had at the time. The owner of the property specified some concerns that perhaps some things had not been taken into account when that appraisal amount was arrived at, and as such, we were able to coordinate with the appraiser. The owner had provided a list of some items that were specific areas of concern. He did revisit the site, re-inspected, and reissued a new report, which I have a copy for you. And was able to modify the report.
All right.
With the new appraised value.
Right. So the new appraised value is basically $40,000 over what it used to be.
That is correct.
Right. And the owner has justified the reasons why, she expects a higher amount, right? So.
Chairman Reyes, in the initial inspection, there were two areas that were inaccessible to the appraiser. The basement, the owner met the appraiser at that time. However, a door lock did not function. He was not able to obtain access to the basement. Therefore, he was making his original estimation based on information without having actually seen it firsthand. Additionally, there was a mechanical area on the roof that he, again, there was a locked gate on a stairway in the back. He was not able to access the roof area.
David, I wish I could say it matters, but we're buying the building to actually tear it down and build something else. So, whatever improvements were made to it are maybe more important to the owner to get a better value, but to us, it's really.
Is there anything that we could salvage for auction?
I'm sure we could.
Yeah, look at how pretty all this wood is.
Yes, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
That's a great point, thank you. And there will be some negotiating that needs to take place between the representative of the county and the owner as far as that. There's some built-in items that are kitchen related and whatnot, some equipment, some things that are freestanding, which I'm sure the owner will remove.
All right, so the fact is.
So, Mr. Chairman, based on that, the freestanding that the owner could remove was part of the evaluation or not?
No. To my understanding, the best of my knowledge, the permanent fixture itself, those items that are built into the building is included in the appraisal report.
Okay.
Okay, so what we're basically talking about now is, okay, if there's some salvageable stuff in there, we want it left because we want to get as much as we can and return on it. But in reality, the structure, the building, the location, everything remains the same. And what has changed is the appraisal evaluation because of some of these factors that were brought into place that the owner was able to justify, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so the new price is based upon the old price plus 40,000.
I believe the appraiser also had a more relevant comparable to set his new market valuation price.
So David, his evaluation is basically supported by comparables and the justifications that the owner has given remain on the difference.
Correct.
All right, so we made the decision to go ahead and basically ask you to go and find out if the owner was willing to sell. The answer is yes, she is willing to sell, and she's willing to sell for that amount, $900,000.
That is my understanding.
Okay, I think we could talk about it a lot more in the insides or outsides, but I think the decision was made to go forward and acquire the site. So do I hear a motion to that effect or discussion, so we can get into discussion?
Mr. Chairman, didn't we already make that motion? Or
We
was
did,
just
but it wasn't
pending?
enough for legal.
Okay.
It wasn't enough for legal. Legal wanted to done in open meeting like this. We just couldn't, the direction we gave you wasn't specific enough at the end of that meeting, at the end of the executive meeting. So they asked us to now put it in the agenda and be specific about our intent to make an offer to purchase the building.
But wasn't,
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, wasn't the other appraisal done in 2020? So it's over a year old, probably, right?
Supervisor, Chairman Reyes and Supervisor Pancras, it was completed in December of 2020.
2020, so, yeah.
I think that if she hadn't been able to prove it, it would have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. It's just a matter of, the matter is that legally us, we have to go after the appraised value.
Mhm.
If the owner comes back with a different offer, it's got to be justifiable, which in
Right.
this particular case, it's what happened. So I even think that maybe the fact that we didn't make a legal decision in the meeting that day allows us to get to this point anyway. So we do have an appraisal that is basically legally good for us to go ahead and purchase the building, and the owner has indicated that she will sell it for that amount.
Chairman Reyes, that's correct.
Clarification, Dave, you said we would still negotiate what? You
Yeah,
said
I
a representative from the county would negotiate.
I thought it
To
was.
what specifically?
So today, what we have accomplished is we've made the inquiry based on the appraised value. So now the actual purchase negotiation needs to take place, which we already have the offer, but what all exactly is included in that is what we need to be
But she has already been made aware that we're bound by the,
So how do we?
no, it's not gonna be negotiated to a different
Unless she
amount.
wants
That
to
was my,
carry
that
out.
was my point.
As is market
correct.
value,
Okay.
900,000.
Yeah, that's the way that it operates.
So there is no negotiation. It
Well,
is,
It is what it is.
it is what it is. Okay.
So your motion is to authorize county staff to proceed with the acquisition of the property, taking into account the new appraised value, which you have, located at 185 South Main for purchase or condemnation. In this case, it would be purchase.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
is there a second?
I'll second, okay.
All right, there's
Martine
been a
seconded.
motion and a second, each in one of my sides here. So there's been a motion and a second to go ahead and proceed with the purchase of the property as stated, and you read the motion, so. Is there more discussion on this? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
David, you may go forth and proceed.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item in the agenda, the tentative budget, is that the next item in the agenda? The tentative budget is the next item in the agenda?
Yes, unless you would like to have the planning and zoning items.
Yeah, I was
first.
gonna say, why don't we just wait till the end? I think we can't keep everybody waiting for the Planning and Zoning Commission, items. So I'm going to, move that to the end and continue with the item, with the expedited rezoning and public hearing items on the Planning and Zoning Commissions. This will be open as a group for public hearing and act upon one motion to adopt the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that is removed by a board member for separate consideration. That item will be discussed and acted upon separately. Following actions on expedited items, we have two expedited items. One is rezoning case number 2103, and the other one is rezoning case number 2105. Now, we don't need a PowerPoint presentation if this is made as a motion. Do we have to open it to public?
Yes.
All right, then I'm going to go ahead and don't do a presentation yet. I'm going to open it to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to make a comment on these items? If not, I'll take it back to the board and I'll entertain a motion to approve these items as presented.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve rezoning case number 2103 and rezoning case number 2105
As approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
as approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Any discussion? Well, there's not
I'll
going to be
make a
much.
second.
Yeah, there's a second. There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I don't think we need one, but all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Those two items are done. Then we move on to the regular public hearing items, which is where staff will make a full presentation, highlighted as full, on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, public hearing, and action by the Board of Supervisors. The first case is rezoning case number 2102, Woodman Family Citrus LLC requested rezoning of a parcel 40 acres in size from rural lake to 10 acre, assessors on southwest corner of County 14th Street, the alignment Avenue 1E, Yuma, Arizona, located in the 70 to 75 decibel noise zone. Okay, so we have the PowerPoint presentation first, Mr. Rubio.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Juan Rubio, senior panel of planning zoning division. This is rezoning case. Oh, sorry. This is rezoning case number 2102. This is a request by Woodman Family Citrus, requesting to rezone a parcel 40 acres in size from rural area 10 acre minimum to light industrial 1 acre minimum. The property is located in the Yuma Mesa planning area at the southwest corner of County 14th Street and the alignment of Avenue 1.5B. And the intent is to develop the property with industrial uses. This is the vicinity map that shows the property parcel 2 crosshatch zone RA10. Every property surrounding this subject property is vacant with the exception of parcel 196-27012, which is the location of the single family residence. Everything else is in ag. And to the north is the Marine Corps Air Station boundary. This is the regulatory map that is shown in the, it's actually part of the comp plan. Visible here, what I want you to notice is in yellow, the location of the current location of the runway 35. It does not run south of County 14th Street. It stopped right at County 14th Street. That is what is shown on the comp plan. This is what's shown in the ACUS study that was done by the Marine Corps Air Station in 2019. It actually shows this property within the APC2 runway 35. So make a note of that because it's gonna. This is has to do with our recommendation of the schedule for development for staff. Again, this is the same representation, but now with the aerial imagery.
Justice Court 1, I don't know why.
Again, aerial imagery showing surrounding uses. This is a picture looking north from the subject property towards the Marine Corps Air Station. Looking south from County 14th Street at the subject property. This is looking west from the subject property along County 14th Street. Looking east. And we did not receive any comments from surrounding property owners. We did receive recommendations from the Marine Corps Air Station, actually recommending noise level reduction requirements in buildings, densities, with a maximum floor area of 56% and a restriction of 50 occupants at any one time per acre in the APZ2. And the Marine Corps Air Station also provided a list of non-compatible land uses. That is on the staff report. The commission is recommending approval of this rezoning case with following performance conditions that within 60 days of board approval, the applicant or agent provide an ARS 121134 waiver, record a navigation, schedule for development, an agricultural disclosure statement, and dedicate the 50 feet of right-of-way on the north side. The commission is recommending approval. However, they are recommending removal of the schedule for development.
Who is we are?
The commission is recommending a removal of the schedule for development.
Okay.
Staff is recommending that the schedule for development is left as part of this approval.
Okay.
That concludes staff's presentation. Ready to entertain any questions?
Why did the commission want to remove everything? I mean, specifically to me, it would be important that the owner know that he has to meet certain construction requirements, for example. Why would you remove everything?
The commission decided to remove because of the applicant's request that the applicant, and Mr. Woodman, I don't know if he's here, but the applicant's request is he feels that by including the schedule for development, it's going to place some limitations on the splitting of property and also developing the property with these restrictions. The argument that the applicant has is that the map that I showed you, where the comp plan shows the runway 35 APZ2 does not really run south of County 14th Street. MCA is recommending, we're adding these recommendations more than anything to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people that will be either working or living close to this area, to ensure that they're protected with these limitations in case the property develops as industrial use at a future date. So that is why we're actually following the Marine Corps Station recommendation, even though our maps differ. But the applicant, again, feels that it puts restrictions and limitations on how he can develop the property in the future. Another thing to take in consideration is the splitting of the property, which is actually condition scheduled for development number 2. By removing this condition that reads, if the splitting of the property results in 6 or more parcels, the owner applicant shall record a final plat subdividing the subject property into parcels of no less than 1 acre in size. If we remove this condition, what's going to happen is, you have a 40-acre parcel. Ultimately, the applicant could split the property into 4 more 10-acre parcels without going through a land division permit. And then through the transfer of property ownership, that property can be split maybe more. So the concern is that the property could split up without maybe needed improvements, roads and stuff like that.
Right, so the staff is concerned that if those restrictions aren't applied, then the owner is basically getting what he's asking for, which is to have as minimum a number of conditions as possible to make his development as profitable as possible. Kind of. Because he's here, right? I walked in, so I guess he's gonna, explain that himself. So I'll open up. Is there any more questions? No?
I have a question.
Okay, what is your question?
I still can't see how, on the north side there, how is he going to get access to all those properties?
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor Pancrazi, I'll show you the map.
Okay.
So, I mean, basically, the main access is off of County 14th Street.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, that's what that north thing is, right?
yes, County 14 will be the main access. So, when and if this property gets split, either through a land division or a subdivision, they'll have to build roads
along that one side.
Off of County 14th Street, yes.
Yeah. Is that the 50-foot right of way that you're asking?
You're asking for a right of way for roads, right? That's the right of way for road?
Yes, the 50-foot right of way that's being requested is in part with the roadway classification network because it is a section line road, and we need 100 feet full width.
Yeah, and I get that, but the problem is you're only asking for the right of way. There's no way to, I mean, is there a requirement that be built up to county standards at some particular point if you develop that property?
Mr. Chairman, right now, no, it's only the right-of-way dedication. At the time of development, either through a land division or a subdivision, those improvements can be asked for at that time.
So that doesn't waive that requirement. It just starts by asking for the right of way, and when the plan comes in, then the discussion is going to be, okay, how are you going to access that property? And I mean, the applicant's here, so I guess we can hear from him how they plan to go about doing that. Correct? All right. Any other questions from the staff? I'm going to ask the developer owner or agent to come forth and give us his name, and I wouldn't get as far as address and social security and stuff. So, but
yes, my timing was pretty good.
You're right in time.
Bob Woodman, address 13388 South Avenue 5E. Basically agree with the staff report with changes from the commissioners. And I didn't catch all the discussion before I came in, but the plan would be, as far as development on County 14th, if it was subdivided, that would trigger any improvements required by the county. If it was developed as a one large 40-acre user, same thing. I think that would trigger any uses or any requirements to improve County 14th.
Okay, let me ask the staff, maybe even Maggie back there. Maggie, I get a sense that the Planning and Zoning Commission sort of removed all the conditions. Is staff recommending some conditions that Mr. Woodman has agreed to, or are we back to no conditions at all, or yes, all the conditions?
Mr. Chairman, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended removal of the schedule for development. They did leave, I think, performance condition in place, which was the dedication of disclosure statements and dedication of right-of-way. However, any development restrictions that would be noted on a future land division permit or the requiring to file a subdivision plat was not recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, if one developer, one person splits the property into 6 or more lots, the developer at that time would be required to file a subdivision plat, regardless of whether that condition is placed as a condition of this rezoning.
That's a real estate department condition. It creates a
Yes.
subdivision.
Correct.
So I guess my question goes back to, okay, are there enough regulations left, enough tools left to be able to, in some way or form, be able to, I wouldn't call it control, but, close to, anything happening in this parcel, other than the 40-acre parcel being developed as one parcel. I mean, if there's some lot splits, if, for example, they decided to split it into 5 small lots, is there something that allows us to require certain improvements to be made in that property, short of having them, do street lights and, not street lights, but streets and those type of things?
Mr. Chairman, if the applicant or the developer decides to go forward with a land division permit, there could be conditions or requirements placed at the time of the land division permit review or approval.
So what we're talking about is whether we ask for something to be done just in case, right? Just to let everybody know, or whether we simply assume, in this particular case, that Mr. Woodman and his family will develop it according to the regulations that apply to whatever they end up doing there. In other words, if they end up splitting the property, then that's one set of regulations. If they make it a subdivision more than 5, 6, they would have to go through the requirements of a subdivision. Is there enough tools, I guess is my question, left for us to in some way impact the development of that property to the benefit of the residents around it?
Mr. Chairman, I think the concern at this time, and Mr. Woodman expressed this at the Planning and Zoning Commission's hearing, was having to place site constraints, which are part of item number 1 on the schedule for development on a future land division permit. The site constraints that are specifically referred to are on the current slide that's being displayed. It's also part of your staff report that's attached to today's agenda quick item, which places limits on the floor area ratio in APZ2. Even though the property is not in APZ2, the MCAS recommended that these site constraints be required as part of the schedule for development.
And I guess the Marine Corps is just interested in making sure that noise doesn't become a factor in people complain because they're inside buildings that aren't insulated enough, and so they get.
Mr. Chairman, it has more to do with the number of people
50
on the site due to the APZ.
All right. Okay, I'm going to open this to the public, right, anyway, so, and then the public section, anybody can come up. I'm hereby opening this as a public hearing. Anybody else? Mr. Woodman, I don't know if I have any more questions for you, but there seems to be, does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Woodman?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
for Mr.
Does anybody else in the public would like to address the board?
Well, I just wanted to add that, that was, as far as the staff recommendations.
That was the one.
That was the only thing I objected to. I realize if we subdivide, we have the requirements to improve the roads. If we do a lot split, I assume the same type of requirements are going to happen. The only thing we objected to was putting APZ restrictions on the property when it's not designated in an APZ zone.
I get it. I get it. Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Good morning, Arturo Alvarez, Engineering Department. The only tools that we have for have the developer build to county standards is the subdivisions regulations. That's the only tool we have. On the land division, you might see a chip seal on internal streets and possibly maybe a turning lane to the property, depending if it's industrial or commercial. But if for subdivision regulations will control, to standards.
But here's where we're making a distinction. This is not yet a subdivision or a lot split. This is just a rezoning. So the question and the answer you gave us was, if he wants to do a subdivision, he's gonna have to meet some regulations. If he's gonna do a lot split, he's gonna meet some regulations. And the only thing, and he's not objecting to most of those anyway. What he's saying is, look, don't make us do all these limiting items in there ahead of time, because we don't know exactly what we're gonna do. And if we get to do them, they will become, expensive areas. Yeah, part of his development. We get that. Do you want to say something, sir?
Yes. Been sitting for a while, sorry. Antonio Martinez, I'm here on behalf of Marine Corps Air Station Yuma. Mr. Chair, Board of Supervisors, first I want to say that thank you for the staff for the thorough review of the actual case. They show exactly what we were talking about. So in 2019, we had the ACUS study, and it reflects accident potential zones for all the runways. And in this case, it's runway 35. The county has not adopted that because we're in the process of submitting that to the county, so it can be adopted in the side. The actual APC ends on County 14 because that was our property, and it wasn't, and I guess Marine Corps Station at that time didn't foresee any development more than agriculture on the southern part. But now that we actually seeing more industrial side, we actually allowed industrial in APC 1 and 2. That's like our most pursued or usable space for that in APC 1 and 2. The only thing we're asking is actually the restrictions to ensure that the people working in those areas are safe. APC 2 requires a maximum amount of people of 50 people per acre. We're talking about 40 acres. So I mean, it's not restricting only 50 people at a time. And also, talking about 50 people at a time, if it's a 24-hour place, then you can triple that amount because, like I said, we want to keep people safe. We will also request, because of the level of noise where it's at, to have a noise level reduction of 25 decibels. And I just want to end by saying that the only 2/3 of the acres of the parcel is within APC 2. So those restrictions apply for that area only, not the 1/3 that is on the outside part of the APC. Hopefully, that kind of explains our purpose of being here. And like I said, we recommend industrial uses on APCs. We just want to make sure those restrictions are in place. So in case anything happens, then
if you get too many complaints,
we always receive complaints. We always receive complaints for anything, but like I say, I mean, I'm the one who receives those complaints, so it doesn't bother me. The main thing is that is always in the back of my mind is keeping people safe. That's the main purpose of this.
Any questions, or gentlemen? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You noted. So there's two actually restrictions that, and I guess Mr. Woodman, come up for a minute. You're saying, look, I don't have any particular problem. I just don't want, the schedule for development. You don't want the time frames. You don't want some of the restrictions, the maximum floor area. What you basically saying is the APC 2. You don't really think that those will apply, or you don't want those to apply necessarily to your development?
Well, I think it'd be bad for the county to piecemeal these kind of restrictions. Because if you do adopt the new plan, that overlay is going to apply to this property anyway. So if you apply it today and then add it later, you're doubling up what we're doing. So I'm asking not to do it at all here, because if I have to do it, my neighbor may not have to do it if this new plan is not adopted for the new ACU study. So I didn't want to have my property
Required when somebody
requirement
else's.
to do this when it's not needed yet. Because if you do adopt it, it's going to apply to me anyway.
Oh, I see.
And the noise zone, I'm not sure which noise zone I'm in, but we're going to have to do the
75.
noise attenuation anyway.
Mhm.
It's mostly just the, how many people have to work there. And I don't know about the floor space. I don't know if that's ever been a factor.
All right, so what we're facing now is a possibility that the Marine Corps Air Station is going to submit their plan, and that plan would probably be approved, and that when it is approved, it's going to make everybody deal with that as part of the plan, as opposed to just a choice for schedule for development. It would be a requirement. And what you're saying is you don't feel that at this time they should apply to you because we haven't really approved it. And essentially, if we approve it, it's still going to apply to you no matter what.
Correct.
Is that correct? Is that okay? Is that, Mr. Rubio, is that what the point, that is that really true? That if
There's no grandfathering these properties, so that if they aren't right, then they, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
no, it's fine.
Mr. Chairman, can you repeat the question? I was actually.
I know there was a lot of buzz going on the side, but
Yeah, no, it
was a
conversation
sidebar
regarding this
going
project.
on, I know. But the question was, if the Marine Corps Air Station submits their plan, what do you call it, the ATC plan?
The ACUs?
Yeah, the ACUs. If they submit it and we approve it as a county, and the question that Supervisor Pancras had, would it grandfather in everybody? In other words, once you put that overlay on top of it, that would apply no matter what happened in the rezoning stage.
If the property gets developed prior to the ACU study being adopted by the county, yeah, it would be grandfathered. So once the ACU study is, once the board approves the changes to the comp plan, which shows the new APZ2 extension, at that time, it's when we enforce it.
All right. So what Mr. Woodman's arguing is, why make him fit that when we don't know yet if it's going to fit everybody? It's what basically said. If it's going to apply to everybody, why would we want to apply that right now when we don't have a decision about whether it will apply to everybody else?
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. I think it's just a decision. Again, it's my take on it is that we will eventually end up approving it, and it eventually will apply to Mr. Woodman's properties eventually. The question here is whether we want to apply it now when we don't have, the actual designation yet. I mean, the actual plan, the new restrictions. And the Marine Corps is saying, well, it's going to be in there. So why don't we just, and not all of it, except some 75, 80%.
Mr. Chairman, do
Yes.
they have a time frame on when they're going to submit that?
It should be within the next couple of months. We're working with the city also with the new implementation.
Okay.
And with the city, it's a little bit more cumbersome. With the county, should be pretty straightforward.
Right, well, why don't we do this? We all know, and I think we all think, that when it does get approved, it's going to apply. So I don't think it's necessary for us to, get ahead and, predict that it's going to apply. I think if it applies, it applies. So I tend to agree that placing Mr. Woodman on those restrictions right now sort of predicts in some ways that it's going to be, it's going to apply, and it will apply. But if it got grandfather, I don't think it can do much in 2 or 3 months, the grandfather in. This is my perception. I don't know about the rest of the board. But anyone else on the public want to make a statement? No? If not, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. We need to make a decision on this. So the recommendation was for approval. That is not in question. The only thing in question is what kind of restrictions we're going to place on it, what kind of performance conditions, what kind of restrictions we're going to place on them. There are some that are applicable to everybody, which are the ones that came up. I think there were the ones where if you speed it up a little or move it on a little bit, you will get to them. Those ones. Those performance conditions will apply no matter what. We're talking about the initial, what do you call it? Back it
Schedule
up.
for development?
Scheduled
Yeah,
development.
the schedule for development. The schedule for development ones are the ones that the Planning and Zoning Commission said, no, we don't want him to apply yet. Which again, if he wants to develop, he's gonna have to follow anyway.
So, Mr. Chair, so our option is one, to require those, and two, to not require those.
One, to follow the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, or two, to follow the staff recommendation. I think that's pretty much where it boils down to.
Okay.
Both of them require the same thing, only the staff recommendation applies to, it issues more,
Yeah.
issues more, the issues a schedule for development with all the conditions, and the ones for the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't. So what's the pleasure? Planning and Zoning recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve, with the, planning and zoning's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Right, so the motion is to approve the planning zone recommendation with all due respect to the Marina Corps Air Station. As soon as you get that done, get it to us so that there won't be any questions about whether it's grandfathering or not. Is there any questions, If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Woodman, thank you. We'll go on to number 2, Development and Planning Zone Division, Special Use Permit, case number 2102. And good pleasure to meet you, although it didn't work out that well today, Mr. Antonio. So,
Nice to see you.
nice to see you anyway. Nice to put a face to that, name.
Oh,
It's Diego David Cortazar, requests a special use permit of the
This is
Yuma
that
County zoning
paperwork.
ordinance to allow an accessory dwelling unit on a parcel 12 Gross Echo in size zone suburban ranch 2, assessors parcel number 72544-010, located in 1331 South Avenue 6E, Yuma, Arizona. Guys, you got a lot of stuff in this agenda. I gotta get to the.
This is actually pretty fast
Yeah,
presentation.
well, yeah,
Mr.
that's what
Chairman.
you think. I think that all the time, but I get all the complaints that you're keeping us here longer than you should.
This is.
All right.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah.
We're almost
Thank you,
done.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. This is a request for an accessory dwelling permit through a special use permit on a parcel 2 acres in size zone SR2. The property is located in the Yuma Mesa Planning Area at 13321 South Avenue 6 3/4 E in Yuma. The accessory dwelling unit is approximately 52 square feet in size for family. That's what the applicant stated. Parcel 10 is the location of an existing home currently under construction, probably getting ready for a final inspection. And they're proposing, well, let me show you what's here. Properties to the north and west is zone SSB2. Currently remains undeveloped open desert. Parcels 8 and 9 to the south are zone SR2. Parcel 9 is vacant. Parcel 8 contains a manufactured home. And parcel to the east is parcel 5, zone RA10, the location of site-built home. This is the map, the site plan that the applicant provided that shows the existing residence, currently final stages of construction, and the accessory dwelling, the proposed accessory dwelling unit, as shown here. This is an aerial imagery that shows open desert and the development to the south. Looking north from Avenue 6 3/4 E, just to let you know that this road is actually, they made it an all-weather access road, so it's now transversable. This is looking south on the main access to the property. Looking east at the separate parcel, the new home. We received no comments from surrounding property owners. We did receive a letter from MCAS, not in favor of this proposal. Staff is recommending, the commission actually recommended denial of this proposal. If the board decides to approve this, staff is recommending you add the following conditions: that the approval of this special use permit is based on the site plan that was provided by the applicant. Any changes will require approval by the plan director, and that the accessory dwelling unit shall not be rented. And that within 60 days of approval, the owner must provide the following: the ARS 121134 waiver and a range disclosure statement. And that concludes staff's presentation. Staff is recommending approval because staff feels that this proposal doesn't really change the character of the area, and it's compatible with existing land uses, surrounding land uses.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Did you have something?
No, yeah, I was gonna stop and say, okay, so to summarize it, the The Planning and Zoning Commission on a 7-0 vote recommended denial. The Marine Air Corps Station recommends denial. But staff is saying, we think it's okay because it's compatible with the land
Right.
uses in the area. Okay, is that more or less
That
summarized
is
pretty
correct,
well?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and if we do, then that would be the requirements or the conditions
Correct.
placed on it. Okay, now, do you have any questions from the staff?
Yeah, why did they recommend denial?
Who, the commission?
Yeah.
Because the MCA is, it's basically opposing it because they think the density will be increased on.
Mr. Chairman,
buffer zone.
Supervisor Lyons, based on my, what I can recall about the meeting, I believe the commission's recommendation of denial has to do with the applicant. I don't know if he's here, but hopefully he is. He could talk about it. But
Yeah, he was not using it.
the applicant wasn't really clear as far as what the intention of the accessory dwelling unit was for. I mean, he did tell staff it was for family, but I mean, they asked him directly and.
Follow-up question, so was that condition then not to be for rent based on that discussion?
Actually, that's part of the zoning ordinance. It's already a part of the ordinance, but we do add it as a condition just to make it, add more clarification.
Yeah, normally when we have a guest house application, it's tied into some member of the family needing to live there for a while, an elderly, and it's normally given on a temporary basis, or it's given condition upon, not renting it out and having a family member live there. Normally, it's a humanitarian thing, even if it comes again, the Marine Corps Station is gonna, within their buffer zone, they're always gonna recommend no, because to them, that increases the density, the population numbers in that zone. So they're always gonna say no. I mean, and that's sort of, to me, that's pretty simple.
To me,
So-
that's just, it's unusual that PNC didn't recommend it.
Because
They're
the
usually-
guy didn't convince him, the gentleman
They're
didn't
usually
convince him at
pretty
all. I
open.
think he
That he wasn't
just said he
gonna
wanted
use
to do a guest house and he wasn't too sure what for.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, aren't you guys, don't they usually put the guest house in at the same time as they're doing the house when they do it all together?
No.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Pankratz, not necessarily. It's really up to the property owner. And I mean, they do have to establish the main use of the property. In this case, would be the main home. So once they either make application for a permit or the house is built, then they have the right to apply for a special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit.
Now, Mr. Chair, didn't we pass an ordinance that it went from suburban ranch to a different zoning so that people couldn't put additional dwellings on their property?
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor Pankratz, that's actually, yes, the board adopted the suburban homestead zoning district.
Yes.
This was a few months back, but remember, that is for property that is currently not zoned for 2-acre minimum. That is in the noise zone. So the applicant still has the right to apply for any kind of zoning they want, but the staff would recommend that they apply for their suburban homestead to limit the increase in density by not allowing or not having a provision that allows accessory dwelling units through special use permits.
And this isn't in the 65?
This is not in the noise zone. And this property is already zoned.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna open up to the public. It's a public hearing, and if the owner is here anywhere, I'd like to hear from him or her. If they aren't here, then I'm going to then open it up, bring it back to the board, and then open up for discussion so we can make a decision. Now, I guess, like I said, it's summarized that way. I mean, the Planning and Zoning Commission didn't feel comfortable, I guess, with the explanation of what the use was going to be, so they decided 7-0 to deny it. Marine Corps Station is asking for denial. The owner, unfortunately, isn't here to explain that, even if we wanted to ask him, what's your intention? And the Marine Corps Station has again shown or sent a letter of disapproval, just based on the fact that whatever the use may be, or it's supposed to be, it's going to increase the density no matter what, because it's going to bring another family or another individual to the property. Yes, Mr. Ruth?
Chairman Reyes, just also, the ordinance has other measures in place that, ensures that maybe make it harder for anyone to be able to rent a home, because they would also have to share the same electric meter as the main home.
Yeah,
And
yeah, there's
then have
limitations
them-
with the guest house. A guest house can't be a totally isolated,
Correct.
separate, and, structure by itself. It needs to be tied in somehow to the
They're the same
main house,
driveway,
yes.
same driveway and same
Right,
electric.
I think we heard it. Is there a motion? No one?
I move to deny.
Is there a second? There's been a motion and a second to deny or to accept the planning zoning's recommendation.
To accept the planning and zoning's recommendation.
Is there any more discussion on this? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Right, the motion carries, or it's denied, whatever that, is the proper way to say it. Now, number 3 is discussion concerning readopting the existing comprehensive evaluation of 10 years, adopting new comprehensive plan pursuant to Arizona revised statute. What are we required to do, Maggie? Are we required by the state to approve a new one, or can we just simply extend the 10-year? Because that's what it says here, and it may not necessitate a long
Made a
and
couple
lengthy
changes
discussion.
in the extent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. So there's a few options here. The existing comprehensive plan was adopted in February of 2012. We are coming up on the 10-year requirement to adopt either a new comprehensive plan or readopting the existing comprehensive plan. You could also move forward with making minor changes to the existing plan and readopting it with minor changes.
Are they, we don't deal with this every day. We don't deal with the plan every day. You guys deal with the plan every day. So what is your preference? Is there enough changes in there that you guys need to the plan to necessitate a full-blown, public hearings and all kinds of stuff that comes with redoing a plan? Or do you think there's enough minor changes you can make so that we can actually make some minor changes and then, readopt the plan?
Mr. Chairman, my professional opinion is that you could move forward with making minor changes and to the existing plan and moving forward in that manner.
No, I'm just kidding, just kidding.
There
Just
are
to throw you off a
changes,
little.
for example, to population based on the new census that was done, the 10-year census. There are minor changes to possibly the circulation element based on recommendation that we have from the bicycle task force that was formed. There's a bicycle element that'll be, not element, a bicycle plan that staff will bring forward at the next public hearing. So there are minor changes that can be made to the existing plan and moving forward in that manner. Back in 2012, when the 2020 plan was adopted, the Planning and Zoning Division did have a full staff dedicated to adoption of a new plan. At this time, with the reduced staff members that we have or the reduced staffing,
We don't
it
feel
would
like we need to
be,
do a whole, we don't want to go through a whole 10-year review. That's a complete new plan.
and if the board wishes to move in that direction, staff would bring back possibly a recommendation to hire a consultant to adopt a new comprehensive plan.
Yeah, look, I'm not very optimistic about the census numbers.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, I don't think they're gonna bring that much change from what we've seen today. I mean, I actually believe we're gonna get lower numbers than we expect. Just because we didn't have any response. So I don't think that should be a driving, force behind a full-blown change. I don't think the numbers are going to be that dramatically different. So my inclination would be, again, to go ahead and make some minor changes and bring it back for us to readopt the comprehensive plan.
The
That would be
existing
the existing one. I wouldn't like to put up another one. Is that
I
okay with you
agree.
guys? Right, then you have direction. You don't need a motion, do you?
Um,
Do you?
Sure, I'll
Oh
take a
my
motion.
God, so-
Just to make it.
Okay, I need a motion to go ahead and do
Do
it.
you remember everything you said?
No.
I
But-
move that we keep the existing plan and make minor changes to it and bring it back for adoption.
As it's
Pending.
required.
Pending the census number.
Pending the census.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the reason I brought up the census is the current plan has information about population but that was based
Those
on
changes need to be
back in
made.
2010. So I need to put updated numbers.
update the numbers
No,
from the
well,
census.
look, let me tell you this. What we've given you is basically a direction to do something. When you do that, it's more up to staff. We have until 2012, isn't it? To get to either adopt a new one, adopt a modified one with the minor changes, or, go through a long and lengthy process. The direction that we're giving you is we don't want to go through a long and lengthy process. We want to make some minor adjustments based on some of the new information that we have, which may or may not include census numbers in terms of populations. I think it should, because, for some reason, we need to have something more than our calculations for those population numbers. But again, I'm not very enthused about what those numbers would be. But the direction is going to be the same. It just don't bring it back next month. You take your time.
Take your time.
Yes, I don't have time to bring it back next month, but I
Oh,
will
just
bring
in-
it to you.
just in case you wanted to bring it back
I will
next
bring it
month,
back
I'd
to you
say
in
no, bring it
the
back next
foreseeable
month.
future.
Take your time. Let's wait until those census numbers. Hopefully there'll be something we can work with.
Wasn't that
All right.
August or September?
So there's been a motion in a second. I remember that. All right. There's been a motion in a second. There was a motion by Supervisor Pancrasi and a second by Supervisor Simmons. Okay, and you know what the motion is like, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna repeat it because it's gonna be different this time. So all those in favor of the motion that I made prior to right now, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah, I was really clear. Now, we need a reversion. We need to go into a reversion of public hearings in accordance with section whatever of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. The board will conduct a hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification in the following cases. First one is rezoning case number 0003.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Javier Barraza, Senior Planner, present the rezoning case number 00-03. And this is a reversion from RA10 and SR2, from PD to RA10 and SR2. This is the vicinity map, current zoning map showing the subject parcel. This is the original map back in 2000. This is the site plan provided by the applicant at the time, La Valencia subdivision, 114 lots. This case was approved subject to the following schedule for development. There are 15 items on the schedule for development not complied with yet as of today. I'm just gonna go. Current status, the deadline to comply with the schedule for development was April 2nd, 2021, based on the extension of time granted by this board on that time. As of today, the subject property has not been developed in accordance with the schedule for development. The applicant has not contacted planning staff requesting an extension of time or reverting the zoning to its original zoning classification. The board has the following options: grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, or revert the zoning to its original RA10 and SR2 zoning classifications. Staff recommends the Board of Supervisors to revert the zoning to its original RA10 and SR2 zoning classification. Mr. Chairman, that is based that we did not receive any contact from the owner or its agent. And I don't know if the owner is here.
All right.
The owner here?
I'm gonna open it. I'm gonna open it to the public hearing because we do have to have a public hearing, don't we? All right, so there's a public hearing. Is the owner or representative here to speak on behalf of basically standing it? If not, I'm gonna bring it back to the board for their decision. I mean, it's a shame because it is a long and lengthy process to get to where they're gotten. And I'm really disappointed that they haven't been able, but if they're not interested enough to come over and show up and ask us for an extension, I don't think we can simply just say, okay, we're gonna do you the favor and grant you one. Is there any?
Wasn't, Mr. Chair, and Maggie, wasn't this property brought up last year?
That's what she said. She said,
April 2020.
yeah, she would give them a year.
Yeah, it was back in April.
Yeah.
See if I have that.
Yeah.
Probably I don't have it in the presentation, but I should have it.
I think they've already been given an extension once. Yeah.
April extension, 3 years, so it was like 2018, April 2nd, 2018.
Oh, okay.
All right, look, I need a motion to revert it back or to stand it. And I don't know if you really should stand it if nobody here to ask for it. So it's, I mean,
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Revert it. Any more discussion on the motion? Oh, there's a second. There needs to be a second. Sorry. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Yeah,
I just have a question for staff.
okay, I have it.
Was there zero communication back?
Zero, Mr. Chairman. One of the letters came undeliverable. They were certified mail, and we did not receive the other one. We sent it to both the agent at the time and current owner.
Okay, I'll second it.
The motion and second to revert this rezoning case 003, to, is it 003 or, yeah, wasn't it?
08 dash.
08 dash
00-03.
14, the past one was 003. Okay, this is rezoning case number 08-14, it's a revision hearing. The staff recommends reverting it to its original zoning designation. There's been a motion and a second to do so. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
I closed the public hearing, didn't I? I had a public
Chairman,
hearing.
sorry, I got ahead of myself and I had the next case on the screen. So the rezoning case is 00-03. I apologize for that.
I thought so. I wasn't that bad. But as you get older, you start trusting staff more, which
You
is a
wanted to
mistake.
go fast.
But so it is 003, right? Okay, so the case is rezoning case number 00-03. Okay, and the motion applies to case number 00-03. And that's a reversion case, and it's, the motion was to revert, to follow recommendation of staff and revert to its former zoning classifications. And all those in favor said aye?
Aye.
So it passed unanimously. And now we're going to rezoning case number 08-14. You got 5 minutes, dude.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Javier Barraza, senior planner, presenting rezoning case number 08-14. This is the current zoning map. Crosshatched and highlighted is the 5 parcels. This is the original zoning map back in 2008. This is what was presented at the time by the owner and agent. Rezoning case number 08-14 was approved subject to the following schedule for development. There are like 5 items which are not being complied with. The deadline to comply with the schedule for development was October 16, 2020. As of today, the schedule for development has not been completed. On April 29, 2021, the owner applicant requested an extension of time of 3 years to comply with the schedule for development. The board has the following options: grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, and B, revert the zoning to its original RA10 zoning classification. Staff recommend granting the extension of time of 3 years to comply with the schedule for development. Mr. Chairman.
Let me open to the public. Is there anyone in the public like to comment on this item? If not, close the public hearing. Return it back to the board.
I move we extend the,
Time, grant an extension.
to grant an extension for rezoning case 08-14.
For 3 years.
For 3 years.
I'll second that motion.
The motion and second to extend, grant an extension of time for rezoning case number 8-14 to an additional 3 years. Any discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We'll go on to item number 3. Development Planning Commission Initiative number 1901 in accordance with Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, cause the property to revert to its former rural area 4-acre minimum RA40 zoning classification, assessed as parcel 186-33-006, located in the vicinity of the northwest corner Avenue 37E and O Highway 80, Welton, Arizona. The only thing that strikes me out, this is a commission initiative. So, bring it up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Javier Barraza, senior planner, presenting commission initiative number 1901. This is the current zoning map showing the subject parcel number 6, zone conditions urban site built acre minimum. This was the original map at the time of the commission initiative in 2019. This is the exhibit A, the site plan that was provided. This commission initiative was approved subject to the following schedule for development. Within 1 year, the owner shall establish and record an easement for fire apparatus access per Appendix D. Also, number 2, the owner shall obtain or provide evidence of legal access along Avenue 37E. The deadline to comply with the schedule for development was February 3rd, 2021. As of today, the subject property has not been developed in accordance with the schedule for development. On March 1st, the owner applicant requested an extension of time of 1 year to comply with the schedule for development. The board has the following options: grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, revert the zoning to its original RA40 zoning classification. Staff recommends granting an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development of 1 year.
1 year again? Are you sure?
The applicant actually was close to actually obtaining that easement, however, passed away on the ownership side of that property, kind of stabilized and slowed down. So he now is gonna retry again now with a new ownership.
Okay, well, I'll turn it back into a regular public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wants to address any issues concerning this property? If not, I'll turn it back to the board for their decision.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Approve of the 1 year extension.
Oh, second. Oh,
Well, there's
Derek
been a
did.
motion and a
Okay.
second by Mr. Simmons, motion by Mr. Lyons, Supervisor Lyons, and second by Supervisor Simmons to go ahead and grant another 1 year extension for this parcel and this commission initiative. Any more discussion on this? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is that it? For the Planning and Zoning Commission. We still got look, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess, okay? 5 minutes, 11:45, we'll start again, okay? waiting.
signaling us to wait,
Oh, we gotta wait?
Mr. Chairman.
Turn on the, oh, yeah, turn on the,
Okay,
there we go.
okay, 4. County Administration Special Tax and District Discussion and Action on the Yuma County Fiscal Year 2021-2022 tentative budget as follows. Provide directions to staff regarding revisions to the fiscal year 21-22 recommended budget subsequent to department budget hearing. Adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 21-22 and set the date and time for a combined public hearing on a fiscal year 21-22 tentative budget and truth and taxation property tax level as Monday, June 28, 2021 at 9 a.m. I do want to warn everyone, especially the people present here, that we've had all kinds of public hearings, all kinds of budget hearings with all the departments that we've discussed the budget over and over again. And although it may be good for the public to hear a lot of this stuff again, it is really not my pleasure to hear it all over again. And I just want to make sure that what we do it in an expedited manner, okay? Thank you very much. So we'll begin with Susan giving us a very brief update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman, members of the board, I will do a brief discussion, mainly focusing on the items that have changed from the recommended budget that you saw on May 4th to the tentative budget, which is today, which we'll ask you to adopt and then publish in preparation for the public hearing. So I'm going to skip through many of these. Here is our all funds appropriation, which includes general fund, special revenue fund, debt service, capital projects, and internal service funds. This is the general fund, sources, uses, and you'll see that the fund balance percentage and the tentative budget is 22%, and that was a lot higher, but the board has taken action and provided direction to utilize a number of one-time funds towards one-time purchases and expenses. So the staffing, when we originally recommended the budget, it was 5.375 positions. The board recently added, if you'll see in bold, the 4th item down in ITS, the GIS specialist / analyst that will be focusing on the recorder and elections. Mm-hmm. So the changes from tentative from recommended to tentative are shown here. The biggest impacts are the board added the food bank. You did authorize the PTO buyback for up to 20 hours. Mm-hmm. We're using funds to pay off existing debt, the 10.9 million, which will also result in a reduction in the debt transfer of a savings of 1.6 by your action to pay off the existing debt. So very wise savings for taxpayers through this action. We do have the GYPA loan at $4.5 million. That has since, we've gotten an updated amount that's a little higher than that, of a 4.9 million. However, there are 2 major pieces of infrastructure that are water and sewer that we can use the ARPA funds for, which would reduce the amount coming from the general fund to about 1.5. Mm-hmm. So as we go through the actual bidding process of getting the bids for those projects, then we'll have the exact numbers for you. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, the MFA, which is multi-factor authentication for cyber insurance requirements, that was something that ASIP came forward with very quickly and on short notice, so we've included that also in the tentative budget. So I won't go through all the capital projects. Tax rates, we want to keep the same tax rate. There's no change from the current year to next year among all of our funds. And just want to make a note on property assessed values. We did note that they overall went up 6.15% from the assessor's overall values. However, of that, much of that, at least about half of it, is new construction. So without new construction, the assessed value increase is 3.48%. So, and that's again average. It depends on the individual property whether there's any increase or not. So if your property values remain the same, there will be no change in your property tax. And then we wanted to just show the impact on a property tax bill at the median home value of $194,000. So that concludes my section of the presentation. I do have on tap Tony Struck to go over the long-range financial plan, focusing mostly on the general fund, and in case you want it, the interactive spreadsheet from Gil Villegas, our CFO. So I'll turn it over to Tony Stroh.
Tony?
Oh, do you need this, Tony? Or are you using that?
So I'm wearing a mask. I'm not fully vaccinated yet, so I'm doing that. But luckily I can be up here to share the information. It's a pleasure. Let me, and because it's up here, it's not working real well. I'm trying, I can't get to the,
We have to.
there we go.
All over the place.
It doesn't like being up here.
Wireless mouse, perhaps?
He has it.
Can you close that from over there? I think it's down on the bottom already, Desiree. There we go. Just click on that. Okay, slight glitch. Like I said, it's a pleasure to present the model. We've incorporated the projections and the tentative budget that Susan noted with all the changes in here. It gives us a little bit over the 22% fund balance, and this is the current year marked with the diamond in the top. So 15% emergency reserves and the 5% stabilization. This has the ability to, if you're interested, into looking at changes in tax rates, but the model currently includes the tax rates being flat at 2.5082. We did adjust the CPI. We're very conservative, so we adjust the CPI up slightly just because of the spike currently that we're seeing. I think over a 10 or 20-year period, it was running about 209, so we felt that might be appropriate on a short-term basis. We also built in, even though Altex this year is looking like it may be lower than what we expected, over the history we've been seeing increases to that, so we built in a $500,000 increase in all the forecast years. The model includes pay down of existing debt. It also includes the elected officials increases beginning in 2022-23 with the clerk of Superior Court, and then the other elected officials in 24-25. The current assumptions are to the left. The recession, right now we don't know when a recession is scheduled. It's in at 24 currently. Conservative vacancy saving rates, 2.5% payroll increases. Assessed value has been averaging a little over 4% per year over the last 5 years. And then we're a little concerned with the increases in state sales taxes going forward because they've been so positive over the last couple of years. Including in the CIP is a 2.7 million for this year, about 1.5 million next year, and then 500,000 after that. So that's kind of the highlights of the way the model is set up. You can see that the 1.6 million down here on the paying down the debt that was listed on Susan's changes. So I'll stop there and entertain any questions or modifications.
All right. Well, I just want to make sure that the purpose for the 10-year, what do we call this?
10-year model or
projection
forecast?
model. It's to make sure that we take into account at this particular time, specifically at this particular time, we take into account that this is not a normal year and the year past wasn't a normal year and this budget year is not going to be a normal year. I think every budget of every city or town in this county has been hit by the same thing, which is not bad. It's actually a situation where we have to fit everything we can into a budget. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that over the long range, anything we do short term has an impact over the long range, and that's why we came up with this plan some years ago to make sure that we balance our actions and have always look down the road and see what the impact would be. Um, I understand, and I don't want to get too much into the fact that maybe a lot of people out there looking at this budget, and as Susan well explained it on that letter to the editor, explain that this is not a normal budgeting process, that we're putting into the budget a lot of stuff that is based on basically speculation, but that we have to have it in the budget if we want to spend it. That is the purpose of the tentative budget. It's not written on stone that we're going to spend that much money. It could go a different way, but if we don't have it in the budget, we can't spend it. And this tool has served us well in the past to try to balance off our tendency sometimes to act particularly fast. This, again, I repeat, it's not a normal year. I do understand the pressure that we feel, all of us feel, to try to give back to the community some of the excess, quote, funds. I wouldn't call it excess, I shouldn't have. But some of the funding that is coming down, I think we can find ways to do that without impacting the budget over the long term. I think we're doing that. I think that once we get through the budget, you're going to find out that we're set aside funds for broadband. As a matter of fact, there's been some conversations about covering the waste transfer, subsidies. There's been conversation, at least for my part, in terms of trying to basically help out the election services in case they need help. We've been very flexible in trying to get most of these funds, if not all of them, back into the community as fast as we can, into things that residents can feel are being taken care of. So thank you, Tony. Are there any questions?
No question, just a statement. But our budget can't change after by statute.
Can go up.
By
It can go
statute.
down by statute, and it can be shifted. In other words, we do have a total amount that we approve. Within that amount are line items that can be shifted, but we cannot increase it overall.
That's what I'm saying, by statute.
By
Because
statute.
because the state legislature has mandated that.
Yeah,
So
and-
that's part of the reason why you see what you see.
And not only that, but in reality, it serves as a guide for, the next year, but also it focuses us into what we can do versus what we want to do. And at this
That's
particular
right.
time, it's what we can do.
Right.
Tony, thank you very much. Who's next?
Gil is available for the interactive spreadsheet, but I would remind you that one item that you did talk about was, and the amount is $95,000 for the U of A lab to continue that for one more year. And that's not yet included in the tentative budget. And then you did talk about elections, a recorder, and I don't know what you had in mind for that. So we would need to address that as well today if you want to put something in the tentative
Well,
budget.
I guess the question is how, and I want to make that point early in this process. We have a contingency amount for the Board of Supervisors, sort of like an emergency fund, and we also have, obviously, the reserves. And when we talk about putting in a project like this one here, meaning the one that we're talking about, Paul brought forth, we can just simply say, it's like what we're doing with the budget is we're putting items up and we're including them. So when you put an item up for expense, you're determining what that expense is going to be, but it's got to come from somewhere. It doesn't matter whether it's between the tentative and the final or before the tentative, you still have to say, okay, if you put in something in there, you need to take it from somewhere. It's not going to be a matter of adding something and adding the amount at the end. It's going to be, right now, it's a process of whatever you add, you have to take from somewhere. So if we add the $95,000 or any additional funds from the election department, we need to basically tell you, take it from reserves or take it from contingency or take it from emergency funds. But that needs to be done. The only thing that it does when we make a decision today is that it already puts it in the tentative budget as opposed to putting it in the tentative and before the final budget as a line item, right? Okay, Gil?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, yes, correct. Today, what we're doing, we're setting up a limit. That's how high we can go in our appropriations, how we can go in our collections. So the spreadsheet, usually this is part of what we do throughout the entire year. This progressive spreadsheet that tells you when it was adopted, the projections, the recommended budget, and then the tentative budget. We like to do this so you can see the progression, how we've gone for the entire process. Just to highlight a few things, once again, we're staying with the same tax rate. We're not increasing in the tax rates. We have revenues. Not much change from the recommended revenues total 1.1 to the tentative 1 $101 million, sorry for that. So total sources continue to be the same. We, like Susan has identified during our recommended to tentative, we find items that needed to be added. They have been added already here to personnel and to supplies and services. Quickly, the same base as we have as the recommended budget in regards to personnel, we have approved or recommended $803,000 worth of different miscellaneous personnel activities. So this is the total for personnel expenditures, not increasing that much. The bulk of the changes are coming in the supplies and services. We have added the additional legislative impact, $650,000. Yuma Food Bank, the MFA, the cybersecurity requirement is included. So that's the reason why we have the increase from the recommended to the tentative budget, $30,887,000. Everything else stays the same. The other big change that we were talking during the recommended, after the recommended process, we're talking about the inclusion of the BOS vehicle, the GYPA loan, whether the discussion whether to increase the $10.9 million to pay existing debt or to reduce the CIP, issuing less new debt. Like Susan mentioned during her presentation, since we are going with the reduction in current debt, those payments were already included in our initial statement. So we made it clear here that this number, the 2.9, is going to be reduced by the $1.6 million. Overall, our structure imbalance is quite high. This is intentionally driven because of our fund balance that we have and the revenues that we are expecting to receive. Within that, we have our contingency and reserves. Our board contingency is always $500,000. Then we have our policy contingency, 15% for emergencies and 5% for stabilization funds. If we are to stay with this program, and if we are to do the things that we are planning to do in our budget, we'll still have $1.9 million for reserve for future buildings. That will give us a balanced fund with a total fund balance or reserve of 22.01%.
So basically, this 1.955, that's where you can then segregate out, let's say 95,000 for the U of A lab, X dollars for recorder or elections. That number would then go down to offset the number that you want to add. So we're not net increasing the budget. It would just reduce the additional reserve for future buildings, to keep it simple.
And the question I would have is, do you have to do it before the tentative plat approval, or can you do it between the tentative and final?
The tentative budget is what you're going to be advertising to the public.
Which includes that one.
So the public needs to know what the board is planning to spend the money on. So if you do plan to have, for instance, if you want a line item for $95,000 for the lab, it would be prudent and informative to the public to go ahead and put that in, so that they know that that
Let's
is
get
your
that over
intent.
with as quickly as possible. Is it okay with the board if we set aside $95,000 for the lab?
Yes.
So that we get one issue out? Fine, so we will put that in the budget. Do we need to have a motion on that, or can we include it in the final approval?
Once you do all your discussions, then you can adopt the approval of the total tentative budget.
Okay, well, that's what I mean. So we will include the $95,000.
By including the $95,000, Mr. Chairman,
You reduce that
we will
one
see
line.
the impact too.
Yeah,
number
yeah,
that
we
we
know,
have.
we understand. Is there,
I just had a quick question, Mr. Chairman. Now, this doesn't include the CARES Act money?
it does.
It does?
It's in a special revenue fund. This is just the general fund. But
Okay,
there is a
so-
special revenue fund that's set aside for the ARPA funds, as well as the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Those are in special
So we don't
revenue.
have to assign anything to those funds because we don't know what they're going to be.
Correct.
Okay.
But the total lump sum is in the budget. So then you can divvy out how you're going to spend that once you identify those projects.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Any questions? Anything else? No? Anyone else? Everybody happy with their budget? I guess. Nobody's complaining. All right, so we need to move on. Again, there's time between the tentative budget and the final budget. There will be a tax and, what do you call it? Tax in truth taxation
Truth in
hearing.
taxation.
Truth in taxation hearing, and there will be time to make adjustments between now and then. What we're approving is a tentative budget, and we're telling as much as we can to the general public what we have decided so far, right?
Mr. Chairman, with regards to the 95,000, just to clarify, that's one time, not reoccurring that we're proposing? Okay.
All right, anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
But do we want to recorder an election?
The recording elections is an issue that I think we would have, it's really difficult to measure that, and it's, when is that election, excuse me?
Well, that's something maybe that if we put money aside, it's not, if we don't use it, it can go back.
A contingency?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, well, that's the question.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, Robin Stallworth-Poquette, Yuma County Recorder, Tiffany Anderson, Elections Director. Two things you want to speak on are the appropriate funding currently.
Certainly. Chairman Reyes, members of the board, we had a meeting with the Office of Management and Budget at the very beginning of this budget cycle to specifically address our level of appropriations for the upcoming fiscal year. And the reason for that being is that we were not anticipating any elections since we now have consolidated election dates. And this is what we consider an off-election year. Knowing that we may still have elections called by any of our entities, or in the case that we're currently looking at, potentially some recall elections. So what we decided is that we were going to maintain our existing level of appropriations from the current fiscal year, knowing that there could be savings because we aren't having a large-scale election. So all of that goes to say is that we made an agreement with OMB that we were going to maintain those appropriations in case there were elections that came up. So for now, as far as operations go, we feel very comfortable with our level of appropriations for this upcoming budget cycle, despite having potentially a few smaller elections than we did in 2020.
So,
Chairman Reyes, in addition to that, we are comfortable, as she mentioned. However, the few things that will affect us moving forward are a few items that we had to address with the board last cycle. You increased our budget authority on postage, for instance, to ensure that first-class mail was, all of the mail going out was handled with first-class postage through our local postal office. So that additional cost to our offices is approximately $80,000 to $85,000, although we have not changed that for fiscal year 21-22. As Ms. Anderson mentioned, it's not necessary at this point. If we were to have those smaller elections, such as the recalls, that funding would not be required. That is something we plan to be speaking with you about for the next fiscal year, because that has not been permanently adjusted. In addition to that, as you have seen, we have utilized temporary staff for both elections and voter services for early voting, and we may need to make some adjustments in regard to that. We have exceeded what we have expected in that regard, and it's somewhere near $30,000. We don't expect to need that this year, but again, those are two large items that we will need to discuss with you prior to the 2022 election. The third thing would be the building or facilities needs, but we remain in close contact with Susan's office and Mr. Hilland in regard to any adjustments.
right, so basically you're saying you don't need any additional funds set aside for you because you have covered that most of the contingencies that you think you'll be able to deal with or you will have to deal with are covered in your current budget and you feel comfortable with it.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, with regards to the change in the legislation as far as early ballots are concerned, do you see a positive or negative effect on your budget?
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor Lyons, I was concerned about that a month or so ago in regard to changes for envelopes, but the proposed legislative changes on those requirements are something Yuma County has been doing for a period of time. They're privacy envelopes. We've spoken with that with Chairman Reyes about that last year when we redesigned our envelopes. It will be a large expense for some other counties if that were to come back up. However, we have been operating in that in that way since. But there was a bill this morning. We haven't had a chance to look through all of it, but there was several items included in the budget, a budget bill this morning that we're looking through right now. So.
Moving target, as long as the legislature's meeting.
And Chairman Reyes, members of the board, I do appreciate the comments earlier that recognize that there are several, there usually is unexpected variables that do affect the ability to administer elections with the budget authority we currently have, but I do feel confident. We have worked very hard with OMB to address anything that comes up and have maintained a great communication with Administrator Thorpe's office as those things arise, because they have been largely unexpected, as we've discussed with you in the past.
Okay, and I think we have enough flexibility in the budget to cover, smaller type items, smaller of the kind that I think a mid-decade, mid-term election would
Our
probably bring.
contingency, yeah.
All right, well, if you
Chairman-
feel comfortable, I don't know.
I just have a comment. How about for, let's say, we talked about earlier about moving, and then if this happens within the next 2 or 3 months, do you have, is that covered? If you get, moving expense or something comes up, is there gonna be?
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor Porches, we were planning on sending all those bills to Susan and Mr. Evans.
Let Susan handle it, it's not gonna come out of the election budget, so.
Also, Chairman Reyes, members of the board, we don't know what the expected cost would be of any changes. We have, our priority is, of course, as Tiffany mentioned earlier, maintaining the security of the equipment. Several pieces of large equipment were purchased last year through grant funds. Our tabulators, those are very important pieces that we have. That was our priority in looking through any relocation of our staff and services. So wanted to note that we do expect to receive after July 1st an additional HAVA grant, which is a federally approved grant through the Help America Vote Act. And you'll see that in our budget for next year, equaling $178,000 for Yuma County. And we would be receiving that from the Secretary of State's office. Although we feel strongly that we will continue to advocate for any additional federal grants that are specifically identified to assist counties, that they perhaps on the federal level come down directly to the counties as opposed to going to the Secretary of State's office first and then allocated to the individual counties. We feel that that's important to note because the county owns the election equipment, tabulates the ballots, and administers the election. And we think it would be most appropriate in the future to continue to advocate for local level funding.
Right. And we don't want to let you go without telling you what a great job you guys have been doing. And the fact that you guys are the forefront, most of these changes, before they happen anywhere in the state, they already happen in Yuma, and that's because of you guys coming up with this stuff. So thank you very much. And it's really great to have somebody come up and say, well, we don't think we need it. So fine. Thank you.
And thank you for your consideration of our ongoing needs, and we appreciate your kind words.
All right, well, thank you very much, ladies.
Haven't killed each other yet.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, is there anything else on the budget?
No scratches.
No? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and approve item number 4, which will read, says, A, provide direction to staff, which we did. And to the fiscal year 21 recommended budget, adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 21-22, and set the time and date for the combined public hearing of the fiscal year 2021-22 tentative budget and truth in taxation as Monday, June 28, at 9 a.m. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Let's do this bipartisan. There's been a motion by Supervisor Porches and a second by Supervisor Lyons to approve the budget as stated. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We got a couple of items left, and they would be the county administrator, discussion regarding legislative issues, discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items, a report of the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills, impact to Yuma County at the Arizona State, and upgrade regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priority. Mr. Figueroa?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, everybody else. Hold on, everybody seems to be
Thanks,
getting
guys.
up and
Bye.
leaving. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Hill, for keeping it short and sweet. Same thing, Tony. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll do the same. I will keep it short as well. My name is Alejandro Figueroa, Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs Director. I'll be reporting on some of the legislative issues affecting Yuma County. I want to thank Mr. Craig Sublin for stopping by today and making my work easier, since he's gone over a lot of the state issues already. Yes, that's me now. So as we know, as of Friday, the both Senate and House were supposed to reconvene on June 10th, and now the House has gone ahead and done that. The large size and scope of the tax package, along with substantial impacts to cities and towns, has a number of Republicans concerned. If the Republican caucus fails to garner unanimous support for the budget, they will need a Democratic vote for passage. As we approach this 150th date of the session, concerns about the potential that legislature could fail to pass a budget by July 1st, there are concerns that will result in government shutdown. The last time the legislative sessions reached July was in 2009. However, several weeks still remain between now and the end of the fiscal year, and the legislature has every intent to pass a budget before that deadline. Going into ADQ and PM10, on June 1st, the EPA proposed formal changes to the Yuma area's PM10 planning status. Any public comments on the proposed actions must be submitted to EPA by July 1st. The EPA is proposing to rescind its previously issued clean data determination for the Yuma, Arizona moderate non-attainment area for the 1980 24-hour national ambient air quality standards for particulate matter with an aerodynamic diameter less than or equal to a nominal 10 micrometers. Because recent complete quality assured monitoring data show that the area has subsequently violated this national ambient air quality standard, they are proposing to find that the Arizona State Implementation Plan, the SIP, is substantially inadequate to attain or maintain the PM10 standard, or to call for Arizona to revise the SIP to address this inadequacy. I want to also share with you the staff is working across departments to come up with a proper response to ADQ. We're also working with other stakeholders, and I appreciate Supervisor Pancrazi's involvement with this. She's been great at getting us connected to other stakeholders. State wildfires concerns. So there's some restrictions on the state lands. Effective May 26, 2021, the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management announced that they have implemented stage 1 fire restrictions on state lands within Apache, Coconino, Gila, La Paz, Maricopa, Mojave, Navajo, Pino, Yavapai, and Yuma counties. Some of those restrictions on state lands have to do with building, maintaining, attending, or using a fire, campfire, charcoal, coal, or wood stove, as well as smoking and discharging or using any kind of fireworks. I would like to inform, Mr. Chairman, I would like to inform the public that the Yuma County Board of Supervisors submitted a letter to the Arizona State Transportation Board supporting US Highway 95 widening project. Thank you for that. As far as the federal legislative update, the White House is continuing to negotiate a bipartisan infrastructure package with Senate Republicans. Since the release of the original proposals, both sides have released counteroffers. Republicans and Democrats remain divided over what to include in the package, how to pay for it, and at what level it should be funded. Talks are expected to continue this week. Pressure is growing from Democrats, many of whom are ready to pursue passage of the AJP by another budget reconciliation bill. However, the White House has said it remains committed, at least for now, to the ongoing negotiations, and it hopes that at least part of the AJP can be passed through a bipartisan bill. The only number that was not increased the discussions was for broadband, which remains steady at $65 billion and currently represents the only area of outright agreement between the Senate Republicans and the White House. A couple of weeks ago, Senator Sinema invited all of us for a call to update us on her outreach activities. And what I would like to report to on is As she is a chair of the Board of Management Subcommittee, Senator Sinema recently partnered with Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas to introduce the Bipartisan Border Solutions Act. This legislation directs the administration to create regional processing centers, surges resources to make the asylum process more fair and efficient, and prioritizes the needs of local border communities by requiring the Department of Homeland Security to notify Arizona communities and nonprofits before releasing migrants to avoid overburdening Arizona cities and towns. And going a little bit into elections, there's already several candidates announcing they're running for governor next year. We have Carrie Lake, an American journalist, Katie Hobbs, who's currently the Secretary of State, Kimberly Yee, who is the state treasurer at the moment, Marco Lopez, who was the mayor of Nogales, Arizona, and served under the Obama administration and CBP, and Karen Taylor Robson, who's a longtime Arizona business leader. Yesterday, our partners and neighbors to the south had their midterm elections, the biggest elections in their history. We had the party of the president, Lopez Obrador, remain in power in the state of Baja California. So the projected winner as of right now is Marina del Pilar, who is currently the former mayor of Mexicali. And in the state of Sonora, the PRI lost the election to the party of the president, Party Morena. And the projected winner is Alfonso Durazo, who was the former federal secretary of public security in this and under Lopez administration. And for the first time, mayors were able to get reelected in Mexico. And Mayor Santos Gonzalez Yescas was reelected to office in our neighboring San Luis Rio Colorado. The president holds the majority and still in the Chamber of Deputies, although he did lose about 50 seats. But overall, they're now governing half of the country down there. These are some of the meetings that I've been holding and organizations I've been meeting with during the last month.
Oh, wow.
And hope to continue working with them. There's different action items that still need to be looked into more detail, and I'll make sure to do that and continue to those outreach efforts. Just to mention a couple, we already have a potential investor that I've shared with you. I cannot share the details at this point in time because there's an NDA that we have to deal with, but it's
non-disclosure agreement.
Right.
Yes.
But it's very promising, and we're having meetings with development services pretty soon. So, as you know, this is the first time I have the honor to present the update to this honorable body board. So I would appreciate any feedback as far as any of specific topics you would like me to look into and present to you on the next meetings.
I don't think you leave any. It's a pretty extensive one. We're glad it was a short presentation. Let's put it that way, because it is a busy. You've been busy, and we appreciate that. We really do. I think that Ian is going to be more appreciative than any one of us, probably, because we know who used to do that. So, welcome. And this was a great presentation. And it was very good for a first try. It's actually, actually overwhelming a little bit. But we certainly didn't expect less of you, Alejandro. Welcome to the team. And I think you're going to make a great addition to the administrative staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
Okay. Susan, let me just wait until we get the report from the rest of the board, and then we'll get it. Supervisor Pancrasi, we're moving on to the reports by supervisors.
First of all,
That was a bad start.
what?
First of all.
First of all, sorry. I attended 3 meetings that I serve on their boards: North Star, Special Olympics, and Hospice of Yuma. Those are the 3 this month that I've served on. I attended the CSA Executive Board meeting, the CSA Board of Directors meeting, the CSA Supervisors, training sessions on state highways. I attended the BOS work session with our 6 legislators, and they were all there. That was nice. And I was on the call from the update from Senator Sinema. I attended the Chamber Transportation meeting and the Chamber Legislative update meeting. I attended YMPO, which is the transportation as well. Let's see. I met with the Yuma County Farm Bureau members and the county staff on PM10. And I gave out awards for Special Olympics for their track and field. And I got one of their, they had a short season because of COVID, but Special Olympics, I get handed out their little medals for participation, and I got hooked into helping with the swimming in June. So I'm going to help coach swimming.
All right, Supervisor Line?
CSA meetings, the BOS meetings. I also met with Chairman of the Corporation Commission, Leah Marquez Peterson, last week, talked about some additional solar opportunities here in the county, in East County, and some of the solar companies that would like to maybe entertain expansion and growth. Also with interest in long-term storage, utilizing the batteries, which enables us to sell additional power after the sun's gone down.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Dunn has included some language in a bill that would further that cause and enable us to expand upon that. It was pulled out of last year's budget. I've been working
to get it back in.
With all bodies to get it back in, along with the post-training academy for AWC, just to ensure that that's finalized. Had some meetings regarding the economic development in Yuma. Had my introductory meeting.
Oh, I did too. So
Yes.
Yes.
I think about 20 more meetings, but we've been busy.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure the budget gets passed.
Met with Foothills Rotary, attended part of the Medium County Caucus. Got tied up, couldn't get into it when they started. Also the CSA board meeting. Crossroads Mission, I had a meeting with some of their administrative people, referenced some property they own out in East County. They had some questions on it as far as what can be done with it. Had a meeting with several different groups, constituents, reference traffic issues and whatever else out in the Foothills area. PSPRS got to hand out scholarships at the Antelope Award ceremony for the high school. Also attended the Mohawk graduation and handed out Outstanding Students Awards to them. Dayton School also attended their graduation, handed out Outstanding Students Awards. Well, Mohawk Irrigation District Board meeting and met with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and got an update over kind of what's going on out at Castle Dome Museum and some of the things they're trying to work with him on to just kind of finish up some of the issues we had several years ago back when we were dealing with that. So,
thank you, Supervisor Porches.
Just I've been on and off on vacation and work, but I did see one of the Kashans are starting to work on that area that was cleaned up by the county a while back. They're removing a lot of the dry brushes and trees that are there, and they'll be putting a fence in that area or barrier, so that'll look nice. And it's in your district, and then but just that's okay. I'll take care of it. That's it.
All right. Well, it's been a busy time. I mean, although it's been sort of a summer, beginning of summer. First of all, I want to thank Supervisor Pancrasi for calling up and asking if we had a year pass for the waste. You know, she was talking about an idea to produce a yearly pass that you pay to go to the waste station. I thought it was a great idea. We may have to bring it back up later on and see if we can come up with something. I think we cannot just put that off to the side. I mean, eventually we're gonna have to have a discussion about what we're gonna do with the transfer sites. There's also a little bit of action on the vaccine side. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talk about, incentivizing people to get vaccinated. I mean, the health department is doing the best they can. They're coming up with lotteries and things like that have been tried someplace else. My concern mainly lies on the fact that we are next to Mexico and that line doesn't stop viruses or bacteria or anything like that, and that we need to address the fact that even if we control the virus on this side, the moment that border crossing is widened, and there's been some issues with the border crossing itself, we're going to have to deal with the fact that we're going to have a surge of people who may not be vaccinated, and we're going to get back to a situation that may be a little difficult to handle. That's another thing that I think requires some specific attention. There's also the other side of that, which is the marked reduction of crossings over the Mexican border to the U.S. border. It's been the lowest it's been in 40 years, ever since they started recording. The number of vehicles, private vehicles, and pedestrians have decreased to a point now that, again, it's the lowest in 40 years. I think that some of those restrictions have had no particular impact on the virus spread. They've had more impact on the merchants at in the American side of the border than the Mexican side of the border. I think the Mexican side of the border would like to keep it the way it is. It just keeps their customers in their side, and it avoids all these people coming over and getting their gas or going to Walmart, so forth. So we've been fighting that, the Border Coalition, for a while now, and we're asking now the federal government to let us share a little bit of the vaccine that may expire soon as we get it across the border. This Wednesday, we're getting a report on the border crossing. I'm a member of a group called the Vision Group in San Luis, Arizona, that deals with logistics, and so we're meeting this Wednesday with Luis Ramirez to discuss, exactly what can be done, if anything, to improve that situation down there. Unfortunately, my view of that is that people who are in Washington make these decisions have really little or no knowledge of what really happens at the border. It's a nice place to take a picture, but other than that, they really don't understand what's going on a lot. Not all of them, okay? I do admit that there are some people who know what they're doing and what they're saying. But anyway, let's just move on and let Susan finish up the presentation, because I think it's getting to...
I have also hosted about 25 congressional visits to the border in the last month, and senators. So people are still coming. They still want to help and take. And that was reflective of Senator Corwin working with Sinema on the border initiative.
Good.
Yeah, I think that every once in a while, there's a lot of denial of how important that border crossing is, bad and good. And it's always nice to have a lot of attention paid to it for the right reasons. So, and the right reasons are all the time that people making those decisions in Washington will always come and...
The commentary, the common thread is, Mr. Chairman, I didn't know, I didn't understand.
Yes.
So it's been interesting as people have come and approached and seen what we've got, our challenges.
All right. Okay, Susan, your turn.
Yes, so we had our broadband task force meeting with Allo Communications, which I thought was very informative. And there's some exciting stuff going on out there. There's a lot of momentum around broadband and trying to serve the entire county. So I'm very optimistic about that. Attended the county administrators meeting virtually for May, but in June we'll actually be meeting in person in Tubac. So I'm looking forward to that, to getting to see my colleagues in person. The ASIP Executive Board took place last week. We also had the GYPA Board meeting. And then I met with Supervisor Simmons and library staff out in Mohawk School District to talk about the library at Roll and also the Arizona Border Counties Coalition. So.
And I want to thank you for that. You have taken over the slack there. I mean, it's been like you were the one every Friday, every time we meet on Fridays. And I did forget the comment that Supervisor Pancrasi made about all the legislators being present on that last meeting that we had. That was a very good, not only a very good turnout, but it was a very good discussion overall about, there was a point in there that I thought maybe this is a good idea to get them all in a room and fight them off, fight each other off. But it's good for them to listen to each other. Even if they don't do it up there, they do it here. And to me, that's a very good indication that our representation it's sort of balanced anyway. We do get all views in there. And I want to thank him for just being patient enough to listen to the other side without getting too wound up about it, because that's probably what happens a lot. They start talking and they stake their positions and they don't want to move them. So I want to thank them for taking the time to listen to us and making sure that whatever they do out there, doesn't end up impacting us negatively, which it normally is, either positively or negatively. Susan?
I did have one more thing to add, and that I've been in communication with the tribes because they are getting their own broadband funding, and I want to make sure that we're coordinating and communicating and working together as much as possible. So I've gotten some responses back from both tribes, so I'm looking forward to that.
Right, it's been a long meeting. I think everybody wants to go to lunch now, and there's somebody that probably wants to, go to lunch and head back and get in within time. So is there anything else? If nothing else, I'm going to close the public, open to the public section. And if there's nothing else, thank you very much for your patience and your time, and have a good lunch, and we'll see you soon.